of a trip. Yes, Bill, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay, hi. So I see we have a couple more joining us. Ingrid is with us also for the first time. Hello, Ingrid.
Wait. Hello.
Hi. So are you back in Memphis now?
No, I'm cruising the Nile River.
Okay.
I'm chaperoning the Egyptology camp, and we have 94 students from
Wow.
28 countries here.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Om, you have your hand up.
Well, Ingrid.
Y- Yes, Bill. At some point, when you get a chance, if you could debrief us from your recent Rotary meeting, that
Yes.
would be great.
Yes, that's the plan. It will either be next week or the week after. I'm trying to arrange some speakers that were at Calgary as well. We have several people here. Ingrid was at Calgary. Joseph was at Calgary. Dietmar. We can even talk a little bit about it, but I want to try to get a little bit of an organized presentation so that we can get across what was the main thrust, and then to talk a little bit about direction, because there is a very mixed direction taking place between, I think, where Evanston is at and where an awful lot of the people that I talk to feel that we need to be going. So, but we will definitely get into that. And let's see, who else did we lose? Dosse. Okay, he was here for a minute. He'll maybe come back. He's coming into us from I think either Togo or somewhere in or Liberia or someplace like that. So they have sometimes connectivity issues. So let's see. One more minute here. We'll give one more minute, and then we will get officially started. Okay. So, yeah, watching oh, there we go. Okay. Ding. I'm Bill Graham. I'm the president of the Rotary Dare to Be Great Global eClub, and I declare this meeting on 5 July 2025 to be open. The topic for today's meeting is somewhat a continuation of last week. We had a really, really good meeting last week discussing the week prior to that. I was in Calgary at the Rotary annual convention, and so we hadn't had a meeting that week, and a lot of stuff started to happen and be announced relative to technology during that time. So last week, we did a little bit of a catch up and a look ahead at what is likely to be coming in a matter of weeks, not even months anymore. And we then went into talking about what is the how AI can help with the development of 7-year-olds. We really were talking like 6 to 8, the early primary school years. And the reason that we had done that was while I was at Calgary and while we were waiting for the presentation I participated in, that a woman next to me and I started talking, and she was telling me about her 7-year-old daughter. And so the thought came to mind to have a little bit of a discussion about what can AI do to help with the development of 7-year-olds, because we tend to look at different age groups, and a lot of the focus right now is at the university level and at the high school level. But when we look at education in general, we see that the biggest problems are happening at the primary school level, which of course is heavily influenced by what happens at preschool, what happens before a child even ever gets to be in a formal school environment. So the discussions were really great. We went almost 3.5 hours, and it was hard getting a stop because we had a lot of people expressing their thoughts on the subject matter, and the discussions were really great. So my thought was we've learned more about some of the stuff that's coming in technology in a matter of, well, in this month, supposedly. That's what the rumors are telling us. And these are expected to be very dramatic shifts and improvements that could change everything that we know, not only about artificial intelligence, but also in terms of our estimates of what the impact on society is going to be, and especially how quickly we can expect these impacts to start taking place. Today we'll continue on that. We'll talk a little bit more about the impending changes and what those mean for us, and what should we do, or um, are we going to need to do relative to some of the changes that are coming from that. And then we'll talk again about education, because this is really a hot topic, but we'll merge. Last week we were really focused on that early primary school, those first couple of years of primary school. But our club, we've got initiatives that are aimed at fourth grade as a way of equalizing. So we sometimes call it the close the education gap, and sometimes we call it ready for fifth. The concept being, if we could get every single child that's in the school system anywhere to be really fully equally prepared going into fifth grade on all subjects, that this would um, well, let me phrase it different. We can play a little mind game. If you were to ask seventh grade teachers, would they be willing to pledge? Let's take math teachers as an example and ask, would you be willing to pledge to get 100% of your students to be 100% a grade level proficient by the end of the school year? If you did that in my community, we've got something like 94 or 95% of our high school graduates go on to four-year universities. So if you were to ask that question to a seventh grade teacher in my community, the odds are they're saying, "What do you mean? That's what I do already. No problem." But if we were to go to the capital of New Jersey, Trenton, or to Camden, another major city in New Jersey, and we were to ask the teachers there, their response would likely be, "Are you crazy? Yeah, that teacher in Westfield can pledge that because 90+% of their students start the school year grade level ready. But 90% of my students are 2, 3, or 4 years behind grade level. Therefore, it's unfair that you even ask me or measure me against the performance of teachers that start with a very different starting position." But if we said, well, what if we could guarantee you that all the students that would be starting the school year with you would be 100% grade level ready? The response typically is, well, in that case, no problem. I'll pledge. I'll get them to the next level. So the idea here is we don't have to go in and fix every grade. If we do that, we take our resources and we spread them so thin that we can't really get the goals that we're achieving. But what it's really saying is, if we can get one grade to be 100% grade level ready, then the teachers feel very confident that they can get them all to the next appropriate levels. One of the major problems in that is that we see this uh, um, discrepancy in grade level preparedness is happening before the children start the first year. We see that there are studies that show in the United States that children from working and welfare class families start kindergarten or first grade up to 2 years behind the average when they begin school. And then almost every state says, hey, we have to treat every student equally. So that now the state says, okay, if it's the third Tuesday in October, you're supposed to be teaching this. And if this ready or not, the students, they don't pay attention. Was the student ready or not ready? This is the curriculum. This is what teachers are supposed to be providing. And as a result, those children from the working and welfare class families, they just fall further and further behind. It starts off with when we talk about up to 2 years behind in mental maturity and in verbal vocabulary. So if a student comes into school and they don't have the verbal vocabulary, and we're teaching them phonetically on the assumption that if they can pronounce this combination of letter symbols, they'll hear the word themselves and then they're going to recognize the word and they know what it means. But these children don't know what it means because they don't, you could have read it to them and they wouldn't understand what you're talking about. So we have to find a way to close the preparation gap. Uh, so that's a major part of what we're looking at. So in the second part of today's meeting, we'll get into that discussion here about where what our plans are, because we have specific projects we're looking at to close the preparation gap prior to kindergarten. We have projects to close the education gap between fourth and fifth grade. And we have a number of measures that we talked about last week that we could do that would help bridge that point from the student getting into kindergarten, but they're now prepared at that level. And how do we help make it easier to accomplish our fourth grade goals with the children between kindergarten and the end of third grade, let's say. So that's what we'll get into on that. So those are the two topics for today. The look at where are we technology wise, what's likely to happen in the very near future, and what does that mean for us? And then getting into education here on what can we do to improve education outcomes, and not only in developed countries, but and I'm mostly familiar with the education, obviously in the U.S., but also in Germany and to a fairly good degree, I feel, in Finland. And I've looked a little bit about at the situation in Singapore. So anyway, that's the what we've got in mind. Anybody want to add or comment anything about the topics for today?
So in effect, if you're helping grades 7-year-olds rather, you're actually helping the higher grades as well, right? Like that's the huge benefit of that. So the countries that you want to focus on are the US,
No, the world.
everybody. Okay.
Everybody, because
But do they have the same standards like the
oh,
you know?
that's a big part. If we look at the United States, about 10, 15 years ago, there was a lot of debates about Common Core. Common Core, the concept behind Common Core was we need to have the same standards. If you don't have the same standards, if somebody moves from one state to another
Yeah.
state, how do they continue with their education if people are not, building on the same standards? So the U.S. standards, that Common Core, were very heavily influenced by Singapore, by looking at the education system in Singapore.
Mhm.
But as we know, there was things taking place in parallel, and we'll talk a little bit about the Finnish system and there, and we'll talk a little bit about my perception in the German system, which unfortunately has changed drastically, in my opinion, in the last 30, 40 years. Unfortunately, not to the better. And we'll talk a little bit about the implications this has, where we can look and see what type of changes take place in society, which ripples into education, and how all that fits together. Any other comments before we get started?
Yes, and common for me in Germany, we are facing more and more that are the children of migrants are coming
Yes.
to schools, and they even do not know the language. So it's nearly impossible for the teachers to start their teaching.
Yes, I have a good friend who has been a teacher in Frankfurt in a gymnasium, and he was pointing out that in one class they spoke the students spoke over 20 different languages, and he pointed out from the perspective of a teacher, what do you do? Because maybe in the day-to-day conversation they sound okay, but when you start getting into technical terms or anything like that, they don't have the knowledge and the language in the background. They may know the material, but they can't necessarily express it, or they can't necessarily understand that if it's being expressed to them in a language they're really not technically solid in. So this, yes, this is a problem, and it's something that we can definitely help impact with artificial intelligence. So we'll get
Yeah,
into
I'm
that.
just about to say that.
Yes, yes. Okay, so today, just as a broad start on the technology side, the when I got back from Calgary, one of the things that was sort of blowing up on the YouTube was the expected arrival of ChatGPT 5 and the announcements of what is going to be included. The rumor mill has been going crazy, and there's a lot of leaks coming out of OpenAI and others that insiders as to the features that are likely to be in ChatGPT 5. But the one thing that pretty much everybody agreed to is it's not going to be a slow incremental change as we've seen with the various uh, changes that have been added in and tried with going from ChatGPT 4 to 4.5 and so forth. So the the talk is that this will become so revolutionary, it will become a factor in societal time, almost the equivalent of saying BC and AD, before Christ and after the birth, and to say, oh, we're going to have B5 and A5 because it'll have that dramatic an impact on society. And so within just a couple of days from that, there was the announcement that here in the coming week, it said just after the 4th of July, which was yesterday, that Grok 4 is coming. And there are rumors from some people that have had a chance to take a look at that, that Grok 4 is even going to surpass ChatGPT 5. And so we can see that this is coming from the competitive environment in AI is causing everybody to be shooting for the moon. And one of the things that we can see as we look across the major ChatGPT, Gemini, Grok, and Claude, and even Perplexity now, that they're all copying everything. Any feature that any one of them brings out is usually made available in all the others within a matter of weeks or just a couple of months. So that this race is just mind-boggling. So we'll look a little bit here. There's not as many rumors about the specific features of Grok 4, other than it's better. But we always have to remember who is the primary person behind Grok. So there might be a little bit of exaggeration on a few points. However, having looked recently at Grok, I was somewhat hesitant. I said, look, I've got subscriptions to Claude, to Perplexity, to ChatGPT, to Copilot, to Gemini, and gee, do I need to add another one? So I've been a little bit leaving it off to the side. But as I've seen the reviews coming in recently, it caused me to take a look at that. And I have to say, the current version, forget about 4, just the version 3, has really caught up in almost every regard to where ChatGPT is. And there's a lot of people that say that Gemini has surpassed now ChatGPT and in all the different capabilities and functionalities that are available there, and that Claude is, when it comes to coding or it comes to writing, even is the best out of all the things. So there's little different things that each one of them are maybe a little different, a little better at, but Grok seems to, in terms of also investment what they're putting in, seems to be just moving a little bit faster than the others. Okay, so that's one aspect here of where we're at in those things. But there are other aspects here of things that maybe people who have looked at what is coming with ChatGPT 5 and Grok 4 and so forth, and are already building some of those capabilities into some of the tools that they have right now. And so we see here Notebook LM. One of the things that if you've attended previous sessions, is we've done a lot of demos about where we're at with Notebook LM and what you can do with Notebook LM. And Stuart is somebody here who, as these things are coming out, has really jumped on and said, hey, we want to do this. How can we do this? And what things are there to support it, and what things we're still not quite there yet. But he's actually been informing me of some of the notifications of stuff that's seems right on the horizon with regards to Notebook LM and the Gemini tools. So I'd like to ask Stuart if he would if he would go and tell us a little bit about what he's done. And hold on a minute, I just need to close this. I'm just trying to make it, Stuart, so that you can share your screen if you want to.
Got it. I can do it though.
What's that?
I can share.
Okay, great. So, Stuart, if you could then just tell us what what your goal is, what you're trying to accomplish, and then tell us a little bit about the journey you've gone through in trying to find the tools to support that, and particularly with Notebook LM, and then perhaps tell us a little bit about what you've heard about the functionalities that are about to become available there.
Thanks, Bill. I appreciate the opportunity. So, for those of you who don't know, first I was appointed to be the technical coordinator for water, sanitation, and hygiene cadre members. So cadre members are the professionals who advise clubs and districts about projects and how to make global grants better. They also do inspections. So I've done inspections from the Philippines to Kenya, and that's great. But in the advisory role, cadre members are supposed to be really understanding global grants well, actually a whole range from direct giving to global grants to programs of scale, and be able to be good coaches. Usually, I find most cadre members are very specialized in one area. They know one thing really well, like water systems for municipalities, but they don't know the breadth of WASH, water, sanitation, hygiene, and they certainly don't know it for every country and every culture. So we have a lack of equal shared knowledge in the cadre system. WashReg exists, the Water, Sanitation, Hygiene Rotary Action Group exists to help the same thing, to help clubs and districts do projects well. And they have a different approach. They ask for a simple submission, and they'll give you $2,000 to add to your global grant if you go through their advice process. The two don't work together. They didn't. So in December, I was appointed to be the technical officer for WashReg, with the goal of getting them to work together, getting the cadre and WashReg to work together, and improve the professionalism of them all. It's a big undertaking. Remember, there are 100 and some cadre members in WASH worldwide, and something like 1,800 WashReg members, but they publish a newsletter that 40,000 people read. So how could I possibly elevate them all and have some consistent knowledge shared? That's the challenge. There's no way I could do it personally, but with AI's help, maybe. So I started using ChatGPT, which I had already been using to do this. And it's helpful. It has some general knowledge about WASH. I started having it learn what I knew and fed it documents. There's about 24 documents about global grants, and then there's the 53-page WASH guidelines. So I fed it those things, and started asking it the same kinds of questions that Rotarians would ask me. And some of the answers were good, and some of them were very general, and some of them were off. But you have to feed it this stuff one by one. It requires knowledge of how to use ChatGPT, and I wanted a simpler, more straightforward framework. So with Bill's help and some reading on my own, I went to Notebook LM. Notebook LM is different because you can constrain the knowledge. You can say, I want to give it the 24 documents and the WASH guidelines, and then ask a bunch of questions. So it's not searching the whole web and getting erroneous answers. It's only searching what you gave it. And that's very helpful. I'll show you in a minute what I've constructed for global grants and for WASH. But first, Notebook LM is improving, as Bill says, every once in a while. And one of the things that you can do now is to share a notebook. So I thought, well, that's really good. Let me first clear out this screen, go to the summary from, you should see now my browser. And this is the Google Search Labs overview of the Notebook LM highlights that were announced at Google I/O. So there's a mobile app, and the mobile app, as opposed to the website, gives you the ability to query your notebook, but that's about it. You can't change it much. You can do the web browsing under your smartphone or on your tablet, but the native app has limited abilities. You can share notebooks, it says right here. You can share them with a single link. And I'll show you how that works in a minute. Well, let me go to that. So this is my, sorry, that's the Notebook LM for Google I/O. I want to get back to the one for my notebook. So this is the Rotary Global Grant knowledge base that I've prepared. And on the left, you have all these sources. I recently did a Nigeria Global Grant review, so there's a bunch of things with Nigeria here, but you can uncheck those or delete those. But everything from the Guide to Global Grants, how to do community assessments, what a vocational training team is, the area of focus policy statements, a training plan, the 6 sustainability steps, all these documents Rotary has, and they're scattered all over Rotary.org. Not easy to find them all. And down at the bottom, I've got the WASH guidelines, the 53-page guidelines that I helped Erica work on. Well, now in the middle, I can ask any kind of question. I could ask, for instance, how can I do a water recharge system in India? Simple question. It'll go through all those resources and provide a fairly involved answer. Demos like this take some time. Over on the right, you'll see some other questions I've already asked, and those are saved as notes. So here I am, your helper to understand the basics for a global grant, how to implement it, how to do a community assessment. You need a hydrogeologic study, so on. this is all good general information, but it doesn't really answer the question I had about recharge. There's a bunch of general stuff, so I'd have to be more specific. Once I have these kinds of things, I can save them to notes on the right, and you see those are previously saved notes. And it has this wonderful mind map function. You can click on a mind map, and it shows you the mental structure of global grants. And if you want to learn more about microcredit, you click on that. Not only does it show an expanded version of microcredit, which I can zoom in on, but it goes right back to the source. So you can read the source. So that interaction is really cool. This becomes a learning environment. And I thought, wow, I'd love to be able to set this up for cadre members, for WashRag members, for ambassadors that are out there stimulating interest. I want to set this up so that they can have this and then give them a video on how to use it. Well, that's that sharing. Now you can share publicly. So when I click on share, Erica's our area focus manager. I give her permission to edit. Bill's a viewer. You have two ways to share. One is to give complete access, in which anyone can change the notebook. They can add sources, create notes, create audio overviews, or you can give them chat-only access. And that's the safe one because I don't want them messing up my notebook. I want to give them a duplicate. So when you do that, here's what you get. Just a simple little empty screen. You don't really know what's behind all this. So my goal of creating this knowledge base and delivering it to people so they can use it themselves is not yet available. However, I'm going to go back. In the IO News, that's not the article I wanted. In the IO News are upcoming features, multiple audio overviews. An audio overview is like a podcast, two people talking. It's very engaging. I think it's one of the best ways to teach new people about the whole thing. Individual artifact sharing. So individual audio summaries and mind maps, we anticipate the ability to send links to those. That would be very cool. I've already generated flashcards. That's very nice, but it's kind of old-fashioned. But notice here, teacher-led experiences. So there's a new version for teachers. They get additional tools, and the students get to work within the teacher setup. Well, that's kind of what I wanted to do. So I'm hoping that will expand beyond just school settings to teamwork. It's not clear. I specifically asked both Gemini and ChatGPT, what will it be the ability to send a link and create a whole knowledge base for somebody that they can use it on their own. It's independent of mine. And they said that's not yet available. So that's where I am so far in this study. If it came out within a couple months, it would be quite, if not evolutionary, revolutionary. It still takes some training, and you still have to watch for errors. So if I give it to a beginner, I'm a little concerned that they're going to say, oh, everything it says must be true. And then they create summaries of these 24 documents. They create a 5-page summary and hand it out to everybody and say, this is the answer to all your questions. So I'm a little nervous about how beginners will use it. They have to have some restraint and have some background information. Otherwise, it has too much mental power, I think, for some folks to use. But for experts, it would be great. And it would expand the ability of the WASH cadre to understand other things besides their own subject matter. So with that, I'll stop sharing and take questions.
Stuart, one of the things that you didn't point out is that if you click on any of the sources, you'll be able to see the actual source materials on it, but it gives you a summary of what the main topics in that particular source, what did that particular source focus on? And then you can, if you click on any of those, it's almost like what you get with the mind map, that if you click on a particular topic, it will summarize all the sources for that particular topic. And it will do that within a single source as well. And you'll get here in the document, or the return of any question that you ask, those the little numbers you may have seen on the screen. If you click on any of those, it actually takes you back to the document that was the source of the idea that it's conveying in that particular thing, which is a major challenge for a lot of people. How do you trust what's being said? The ability to go and get the actual citation. Where did that idea or piece of knowledge, where did you get that? Where did it come from? The ability to go back and get the actual quote from the document really helps you be able to come up and explain to people, hey, this is why we're saying this and where it came from.
You're absolutely right, Bill. And there's an example there on the screen. Every time it gives you a summary, you have these footnotes, if you will, that you can hover over and go directly to that source, and then scroll up and down that source to read it. So it is enough. If you limit the sources to known, authentic information, and then you have this ability to quiz and summarize and do mind maps and do audio overviews, it's a tremendous learning environment. I find that people have to learn the environment, but once they get into it, say, oh my gosh, I didn't know. And I think it is more friendly and more personal than the typical methods that we use in Rotary. A webinar is okay, but after 20 minutes, a lot of that knowledge is faded away, and it gives you canned information that you're supposed to remember for the next year. That doesn't work very well. I believe in the importance of giving people the information they need now to get to the next steps so that they can grow and use that. You have a question. You are muted.
Yes, I do. My question is, maybe it's very naive. It's what you have described is very good at operational level, organizational level. But people who want to have more creativity or research-based, do we need to develop a different kind of environment for them, or how does that work?
Well, in the Rotary guidelines system, there's a lot of flexibility to do projects, but there are also a number of requirements that you have to meet. So that's what this is useful for. For people who want to be really creative, I would say just go to ChatGPT or Claude and say what you want to accomplish. You can it'll go crazy. It'll write poems and prose and Shakespearean sonnets. Does that answer your question?
Yes, Stuart, I think one thing here to recall is this Notebook LM works really great in conjunction with Gemini Deep Research. So that if you really want to go out, not to just a set, okay, you're going to show the discovery. Well, go ahead and explain discovery, and I'll come back and talk about the deep research.
Yeah, I think this is the regular Gemini that leads you to. And when you do that, you can now expand beyond your sources. So you can say, how do they do toilets in Cambodia when the water level is so high? And it'll go out and find articles and studies and WHO documents that address that. So then once you find those, you can add those as sources, but you can authenticate them through your own discovery process.
Yeah, and you have the ability here when you're describing the sources, when you say go out and find for me sources for that particular aspect, you can also say limit it to only certain kind of sources, limit it
Yeah.
to peer-reviewed academic papers, for example. But even if you don't specify that, the discover function here already filters the sources to a degree so that they are much more reliable than if you just went out to the internet in general. So it's not going to provide you just about anything. And also it gives you the capability, what the Stuart is showing here now, you can see it went and found this. It'll do 10 at a time, but you can keep repeating this because in the free version, you can have up to 50 sources. If you're paying your $20 for many, many functions, even beyond Notebook LM, then you can have up to 300 sources. And those sources can be equal individually the size of an entire textbook. But then you can say, no, this one here, I know about that source. It's not reliable. So you take it off and only add to what you've got sources that you feel comfortable with. So the
Yeah.
idea is that you want a curated body of knowledge here, if you would.
Yeah.
Uh,
I
uh,
want,
Stuart, can you
one of the
just mouse
things I would,
over? Can you just mouse over one of the sources here so we can see how it shows you, or click on one of the sources so it will show. There you go. So it's uh, click on the down arrow on the source guide. Yeah. So see
yeah.
what you get is you get to see the actual source down below. But here it gives you a summary of the source, and then it says these are the key topics that are covered by this particular source. And if you click into any one of those, it's gonna open that in that middle section there, and where it digs into detail on that particular aspect in that source. And now you have all these citations for the specific points, but you can now ask follow-on questions down at the bottom. You can ask follow-on questions to what it gave you here relative to that focus area there.
But one of the things I would love to do, Bill, is to be able to have collections of sources. So uh, a compressed version. These are the global grant sources. These are the
Oh,
guideline sources. These are the IRC WASH sources. These are the WHO sources, and choose among those
yes.
and quiz them. But that's probably a ways down the road.
I actually have heard something along that line, but I can't remember if it was relative to Notebook LM here or to projects where you're going to be able to group sources. So
Yeah,
that's it. But Dietmar's had his hand up for a while. So Dietmar.
I did, Mark.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Stuart. It was very interesting. And I did just a similar thing the last days. I put in Notebook LM the document for district grants. And it worked very nice. I made a mind map and I made a podcast out of
Mhm.
this. And
Yes.
this was also very interesting. But I found out there were some sentences misunderstanding, even wrong. So I think it is very necessary to check again whether it is really whether it is really that what the people should understand out of it.
Mhm. Mhm.
You're absolutely right, Dietmar. It is easy for these large language modules to make mistakes. And one of the reasons for that is they're not actually thinking. They're looking at strings of words that typically appear together. And that's a different method of showing information.
And so I think we must be very careful to put too much sources in one document. I think the chance that there will be more misunderstanding the more documents you put in. And then there's a question: how can I modify this? How can I correct this? The easiest way would be to change the original document, but then it's not longer the original. So what to do?
So what you can do about that is to have the conversation in the middle and make your corrections, find other reliable sources, and then when you have that conversation, save that as a note, and then you can make that note a source.
Yeah.
Okay.
Huma, I think he wants to add something to that topic.
The thing is that what's his name? The related to Notebook LM. When you are using Notebook LM, for example, you are a new user. I'm answering Demeter. For example, you are a new user. You have to explore a lot when it comes to just related to resources and related to sources. Because the more you explore, the more you play with the sources which you are putting in, the more you will get the idea. When it comes to podcast, to some extent, you are absolutely right that when it generates the podcast, so many things are missing from that podcast. That's perfectly, I agree with you on that. But the thing is, at the same time, when it is summarizing sources for you via different websites and different URLs, so that is the biggest help, like mind map and other things. Yes, when it comes to podcast, I also have the same observation that you are pointing out. Thank you.
Yeah. A couple of thoughts here. First, when you load up a notebook with a bunch of sources, one of the first things I recommend you do is you do a conflict analysis. In other words, that you ask it to identify any areas where different source documents conflict or
Disagree.
disagree. Exactly. And then the other thing is what's called a gap analysis. This is what I find is so fascinating. Let's say somebody is trying to go and select a topic that they're for a doctoral dissertation. They want to get a PhD, and they're trying to figure out what to take as their field of study. You can do a gap analysis. A gap analysis is saying, okay, from all the information out of these sources, what information seems to be missing? What information would add or contribute to better understanding of the information that's there? So if you start off with these two things of looking for disagreements and looking for gaps, then you can target when you go in and say, I want to discover more sources for this particular notebook. If you have a better understanding of what might be missing, you can really make that prompt that's looking for additional sources to be very exact. So, like Stuart mentioned here, if you're looking particularly for water issues in Cambodia, where there's a high water table, so you can target the areas that are missing, but you can also go and ask it, hey, give me. You can literally ask Notebook LM to give me the prompt to use in the Discover to find sources that will resolve a disagreement or most likely resolve a disagreement. So again, you're able to very narrowly say that, okay, there's a disagreement among my sources on this. Okay, find for me sources, authoritative sources or reliable sources that speak to that disagreement point. So does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Gap analysis is the main thing.
Yeah. So
That is the problem.
yeah. So that's one thing. Now, the other thing that was mentioned here, when you start talking about audio overviews, one of the things that I've observed is that the Notebook LM, when you're in the chat mode and so forth, it limits itself to the sources that you've specified.
Yes.
When you go into the audio overview, regardless here if I've tried to limit the sources or I've tried to say, don't go here or don't bring in that, it still goes out there. It seems to me that in the audio overview, it goes and brings in stuff from the outside. I've seen it come up with an audio overview where it says, well, the sources say this, but we don't necessarily believe that. And then it goes off into this tangent
Oh,
about the debate relative to whatever your sources are
Bill,
saying.
excuse me, Bill, can we talk about jot form as I have to leave little early?
Okay, give me
If
just a
so, allow.
give me just a minute to pick up on a couple of
Okay, fine.
points, and then we'll go over to who was going to present for us something that's new
I'm
and
going to explain. Explain, yes.
okay. So, but just wrapping this up on the audio overview, the customization. There's the ability when you don't have an audio overview yet that you can now customize what you're asking. So when you're looking at something like grants, there might be a subtopic within the grants that's important. And so you can say in the customization, make me an audio overview over this particular aspect of the body of knowledge. Okay. And that customization is extremely powerful. I have found it to be extremely powerful. And now you can do that. You can request it up to any one of 70 languages, I think, that it will do the audio overview in any of those languages. And right now, you can only have one audio overview. So that means when you create the audio overview in a particular language, but you want to have it in a bunch of languages, take it, download it, and then delete it and then make another one in the next language and do the same thing. And you can build a library of whatever you want in multiple languages. My understanding is that that is about to change. Uh,
Yeah. The,
how many?
the rumor I've heard is that there will be 5 saved audio overviews per user.
Okay.
But Bill, I'm having trouble customizing or choosing a language. Can you demo
Okay,
that
you
with?
go to setup. You have to go to setup up at the top of your screen where it says setup. That's where you select the language.
To change the language,
Oh.
go to setup at the top of the screen.
Okay.
Settings. Oh, output language.
Yes, output language. And then when you click on that, it will open up and then you can scroll down here and
Okay. And the customizing words, where is that?
the customizing. If you do not yet have one, if you go up at the top, open a new Rotary page here, a new notebook, open a new notebook, or if you have
New
another
notebook.
another
Yeah.
notebook where you have not yet created an audio overview.
Yeah.
Okay, just click on one that you don't have an audio overview for yet. And no, you already have one there.
I'll just make a new notebook.
Yeah. Okay. So
Just pick a source.
yeah. Just yeah.
There we go. So it has to be a brand new notebook. You can't do it
No,
in an
no, it
existing.
doesn't have to be a brand new notebook. It just has to be one that you do not yet have an audio overview for. And if you already do have an audio overview, you can download it and then you delete it. So now you're fresh on the audio overview. So that if there's 5 different major question areas relative to the body of knowledge, you
Yeah.
make an audio overview, you download it, you delete it, and then you go and click to make a new one. Click on the click on
Where do I
the
go to delete it?
customization. And in the customization, you can say for the first one, I want you to focus on selecting your project. And the second one, you focus on justifying the grant or whatever it is. So you can really make a lot. So if you're going to be able to do 5, that's okay, but it's probably not going to satisfy totally, where we want to go. But with the download capability you have, and keep in mind this audio overview, if you do a deep research project in
Yeah.
Gemini. It now, after it generates the deep research result, it gives you the option to create an audio overview of the output of your deep research, but it also generates the ability for you to make a website that explains the results of your deep research, or to create a quiz to quiz yourself or somebody else about the results of your deep research. And that's being expanded on continually. Okay, so the last point I want to make on this is that one of the other changes that's coming shortly is video overview. You're going to be able to go and select to say, make me a video overview that explains how to do this or how to do something. And supposedly, that gets very, very hands-on. So you're going to be able to see somebody if you did something about how math works, and you say, okay, I want to have the Pythagorean theory explained. It will generate graphs and animate and show pointing to the particular corner of a triangle and all kinds of things like that. Now we won't know, but it's apparently in test mode already. So there's a good chance that it will be out either before the end of this month or next month, that we're going to see a lot of these capabilities that Stuart was referring to coming out in that. We'll come back to this a little bit because I want to go into deep research a little more. But Huma's and she's got a time constraint. So she has done some experimentation with a really, really new hot thing about if you have ever made PowerPoint presentations, or if you ever made presentations, the idea that you can have AI make the presentation for you, make all the slides. You tell it, here's what I want to convey and who I want to convey it to. It'll make all the slides. And then you can say, gee, it'd be nice if somebody narrated my slides. And so you can have the system create the voice and all of the script to present your presentation, and then have it presented, and you can include surveys and all kinds of stuff in there, and interrupt it. Oh, we didn't talk about Stuart, the audio overview in Notebook LM. One of the hottest things about that is you can click on the interactive beta mode
Yes.
underneath that, and you can actually interrupt the audio overview and ask it questions along the way, and it will answer your questions for you. But we'll come back to that later on. Let's go to Huma and hear about this really wild new thing that I think is sort of an advanced look into what we're going to be seeing in the next few weeks. Yes, Huma.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, everyone. The thing is, this JOT form, Bill has introduced it 2 weeks earlier to all of us when we were having this webinar. I tried it. I started trying it for 2 days for basically and specifically for PowerPoint presentations. But what I was inclined towards more towards the surveys. They are giving you different survey forms and everything. That was easy for me to try those survey. And once I got frustrated that how can I just approach to PowerPoint, particularly when it can narrate for me and it can build a PowerPoint. There are agents over there on this platform. The agent helps you to make a PowerPoint. Then it comes the narration. They narrate it for you. That is the best thing. And last but not least, the whole PowerPoint is not only narrated, you can interact with them as well during that narration. So this is amazing because I used Gamma as well. Gamma has more, you can say, colorful slides and everything. But Jotform, Jotform, this platform is a miraculous thing because it has agents who help you then and there, who help you not only make your slides, not only give you ideas, but also can narrate them for you. And that is amazing because it saves your time. And the quality, which I have checked as being an educationist, I have checked from the education purpose. I just put different topics, then put different SME topics. I'm working with the institution here for a small scale business as well. So this is this Jot form is an amazing app. You should try that. And it's very easy to use. But initially I got little frustrated because I was unable to understand the interface. And the main jet dashboard was giving me a tough time. But within 48 hours, I was able to. Then after that, there is no looking back. It's very easy, and you can have all kind of forms, survey forms, everything. And yes, last but not the least, workflow is also there. That is also very helpful. Thank you.
Yes, and some of the things here that you may be able to comment on, I've only got it from the description of others that have been using it. Not only can you say you if you have a PowerPoint already or a slideshow, you can just say narrate my existing and just
Yes.
upload your existing presentation, and it will develop the script that will narrate that PowerPoint or that slideshow, and it automates it. It narrates and automates it. And so, as Huma pointed out, where have you seen that I've got a slideshow here that's being narrated, and I can say, "Excuse me, can you explain that slide a little more detailed?" And it will do it. Or you can say, well, what about this? I don't see that on your slide, and it will explain to you either why it's not there or go into detail. So that is was pretty mind-boggling. And you can select the tone. Do you want it to be
Yes.
explanatory? Do you want it to be persuasive? What's the purpose of your presentation? And you can do that. And as you go and you can go down slide by slide, and you can, I think you can change the image of the slide, correct?
Yes.
You can change that, but you can also change the narrative text. So it'll show you the narrative text. And if you're anybody's familiar with Descript, where you can go in and say, okay, I want to have somebody speaking something, and then you can go in and just edit what they're going to speak, and that changes instantly what they're saying. You can do the same thing with your presentation here. So as you go through and you say, well, wait a minute. No, I heard that slide. No, that's not what I meant. I mean, something else is more important. You can go in and edit exactly what the person's going to say relative to that slide. And finally, because the AI is going to answer questions, you can give it a body of knowledge. You can load some files and say, when you answer the questions, I want you to take your answers from these documents. In other words, don't take it from the whole internet. I want you to hear. I want basically you're training the AI that's giving the presentation on the body of knowledge that it should focus on. Is that correct, Huma?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, it's mind blowing. Whatever you have to do, you can do it with confidence. Because while I was using Gamma for my certain presentations, I was not very confident because Gamma was giving me very basic and general ideas and general informations.
Stuart, you have a question.
Yeah,
major
Huma, I've got a question. When you ask it to expand on the knowledge that's not just in your source, what is it doing? Is it employing ChatGPT, or how's it doing that?
I think via agents I was doing it. I think, but it was giving. I don't know. It was applying ChatGPT or not. That I did not check.
I
Yeah.
think I think I saw somewhere where you can say sort of like Perplexity, where you can say what LLM you want to have used in the background. I'm not sure on that, but I thought I saw something like that.
But but the agents were really good the way they were helpful. And secondly, you have a lot of room to research those things because in Gamma and other things, other apps for AI apps which are giving you PowerPoint presentations, they are giving you very basic ideas and very basic knowledge. And we don't want only the basic things. So JotForm is solving those problems. But I will explore more definitely because JotForm is altogether a different world. And it is a world in itself, I think.
So as I said, I think this is sort of a glance as to this next generation of tools that we anticipate coming, as Uma's saying, it's really an agent technology because it's doing a lot of steps here for a result for you. But
Hmm.
your thoughts, other thoughts in general from all of you, to the idea that you can say, I'd like to make a presentation about something for some reason. I want to make it a pitch for sales or to get investors, or I want to make it an educational thing where I'm creating an online lesson on how to do uh, polynomial equations or something like that. And the fact that this thing can generate a presentation outline, I think, Huma, correct me if I'm wrong, it created an outline first, right? And then after you
First,
approve the
now,
outline, then it goes and creates the slides
yes,
and
like that.
things, and then it goes and creates the narrative and so forth. So, but just the very fact that I can just say, you know what? I need a presentation to present to this audience about something, and it will generate the presentation and it will narrate it, and it allows the audience that I'm doing that for to ask it questions, and I can limit here where it's going to get the answers from, so I make sure the answers are the answers that I would want to have
And
given.
the one important aspect, it is setting the tone of the narrator. That is one of the best thing.
Yeah,
Formal, very professional, as you said, assertive, firm. You have options to set the tone as well
right.
of the presentation and of the narrator as well. And the one most important thing apart from these presentations, this workflow and e-signature documentation is also available.
Oh,
And
wow.
automatically it will just put your e-signature in your own documents,
Right.
the documents which you provide. This feature is also there.
And the ability to attach surveys, so you could go in and say at the end of the presentation, hey, if you'd like to join our mailing list for our newsletter, please enter your contact information here. Or would you give us a review of how you found this presentation, what you think about the presentation, what you'd like to see improved on it, or where you found you still have questions. So
Hmm.
the ability, you're combining all of this whole interactive process that you might have with certain audiences in basically a little simple thing that you're doing. Maybe it's not just minutes, but it's not days.
Yes.
It's maybe a couple of hours. So thoughts and your thoughts of everybody else here. How valuable do you think this is?
Sounds quite valuable. I would want all these engines. I want the ability for it to tell me what it's going to do, qualify the sources, review it, give it instructions, so it's not just going out in the wild.
Hmm. Actually, the thing is, whatever is available right now, and on daily basis we are having new apps and different things. Right now, what we need, as we are also upgrading ourselves, the way AI is upgrading itself. The thing is now we need more deep research and the apps and the tools and the agents who are giving us things out of this deep research. We all going towards that, and jot form is a step towards that. As I told you, as I have differentiated it from gamma is giving you very basic informations. So we are not here to just have this basic information now. As AI is progressing, the people who are using AI, they are also progressing.
Mhm. And the thing here that I think is going to be really the killer is that you can combine this. You can go, for example, to Gemini Deep Research, which among all the deep researchers right now, I think most people are saying that the Gemini Deep Research is the best. But then you're going to get this 40-page document usually on whatever it is you're researching, and you say, what am I going to do with this? But then you can take that document and say, fine, now break this down. Give me 600, the most important 600 words that get the gist of the results of that deep research. Or you can even say, now give me a 10 slide a presentation that will present the gist of the findings of this deep research. It will generate for you in Gemini, it will generate for you the whole slide outline or the presentation outline. Then you can turn around and give that as the prompt into Jot form. And so Jot form will build its presentation around the results of your deep research.
Yeah.
And there's another thing here that in the ChatGPT 5 that's coming, one of the things that it has is it has much greater qualification, if you would, of its answers of whatever it's going to give you back. It's verifying the content much more. So it's supposed to be reducing hallucinations by more than 50%. So that when you combine that, and I'm sure, like I said, Grok and Gemini and all these, whenever any one of those players comes up with something, you can be rest assured within the next few weeks, they all have it.
Okay, Bill, my question to you and to Stuart as well, all those people who are listening to me is, we are heading towards good research, deep research, and more authentic research and different agents, different assistants. What is the future of PhD now?
Well, given here that a few weeks ago, if you recall, we presented the findings of a deep research on PhD level research and studies. Okay, what does a PhD consist of? It consists of finding an area where information is lacking, going out and doing the research to discover something new, and then putting this into a meaningful report, having it peer reviewed, and making sure that it's valid and publishing it. So that
Right.
process normally, if we take a look at the US, it's typically 5.5 to 7.5 years. I think it's something like about 5 to 6 years in Europe. Then with AI, if you make maximum leverage to the max AI, it's saying it should take less than 6 months to do the work. There's still all the politics because there's a ton of politics involved in getting a PhD or with the institution that's
Okay.
involved and so forth. But
And I think education system is not ready to just do any or make any changes in PhD.
no, but here's the thing that's coming. The universities do two things. They help you learn, but they also provide credentialing. Okay, you get a degree or you
Yes.
get something else. We anticipate that there's a split. We see a split coming. So you're going to have independent bodies that are credentialing. They are experts in assessing your knowledge, and other bodies that are going to be helpful in helping you learn stuff. And so
Okay.
universities as we know them today, I don't think they're going to survive the next 5 years. And the reason is because jobs are, especially white collar jobs or jobs that require university, are going to be declining. And we know in the US, for example, 80% of university students are there to prepare for career. For their income, their future income. And if that's not there, they're probably not going to be going to the university. But the other thing is that the knowledge, if we look here at Notebook LM, now just assume that there's some library out there that for every subject that you can imagine, there's a curated library by the professional association body relative to whatever that knowledge is. You're going to be able to acquire whatever knowledge that you need so quickly and easily. The other thing about it is that with the switch from just in case knowledge, which is our whole education system right now, as we teach you all kinds of stuff just in case maybe you're going to need it later, is switching to a just in time. Because the AI within a couple of years, probably within 2 years, AI is going to tell you everything you need to know before you probably even realize you need to know it.
And simultaneously, at this time, at this point of time, for example, if I talk about my region in Pakistan, people are doing BBA and masters in artificial intelligence. I mean, seriously, why people are doing these degrees in artificial intelligence? Because right now, artificial intelligence should be embedded in each and every subject, in
Yep.
each and every curriculum, rather than having a separate degree on it. I have done 2 MBAs and I'm still waiting. When will there will be a change in PhDs or any other rule? I will enroll myself in PhD. But right now I'm not doing it.
But keep
So why this?
Yeah.
Yes, sorry.
Keep in mind here that that universities are businesses. So most universities, if you already know the subject better than any of their professors, they
Just
still require you to go and sit in the lectures and take the courses and pay the
yes,
money.
I understand. But the thing is, artificial intelligence should be embedded in everything
It
rather
is
than
coming.
having a separate degree.
Yeah, it is coming. The estimates here, I mean, are they're talking about ChatGPT 5 having over a quadrillion tokens of knowledge. That's like more than 1,000-fold increase over what we had with ChatGPT 4. So we're getting to the point where anything about anything will be there. And keep in mind with synthetic data, and which a lot of people say, well, that's not real data. We can't really go by that. Actually, there's many points that have proven that synthetic data works really, really good. We're seeing that used in the self-driving cars, where there's gazillion scenarios out there that we've not been able to capture in real life. We know it could happen, but it never happened, so we don't have that data. NVIDIA has a major initiative, and Google as well, to generate all the scenarios that have not happened but could happen. And this is also being used in drug medication discovery. I mean, it's the thing that happened with to be able to come up with Go or AlphaFold are all developments from the direction here of seeing all the could be's and then eliminating from the could be's the ones that are not likely and narrowing it down to potentially realistic scenarios and then being able to use that as the training data. So we're 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 going to hit. But for the universities here, the thing that's happening, we see, I think it's the state of New Hampshire in the United States. They passed a law that if somebody can prove they already have the knowledge, you can't force them to have to sit through the course just because they want to collect your money to pay for that. And that's one of the things that's going to drive this split between the credentialing, where we're going to have bodies that are experts in a particular field, data management, data science, whatever, that they will certify to somebody's level of mastery. You already have that in the medical field. All the government licensed fields where you're required to take a bar exam or a medical exam to prove your mastery before you're allowed to practice in that field.
In order to get that credentialing accepted by governments, it'll have to be better than the universities, and they'll have to lobby for legislation that makes their credentialing recognized.
Right. Yes, and well, but it comes a competitive thing. If what we see here is the word will get out very quickly. This credentialing from this institute is very reliable, and the credentialing from another one is not that reliable. And people will seek out the one that has the best reputation because that's the one that's going to help them the most going forward.
Yeah, that's what I say. It has to be better than what the universities are doing now.
Exactly. But that's not very hard to do because the
Yeah.
credentialing part is not that robust in most institutions. If you've sat through the professor's lectures and you got even a mediocre, that's usually enough to get your degree. In fact, well, Huma, you're from Pakistan. One of the
Yes.
things that we hear from Pakistan is how many graduates from universities there really don't have useful knowledge.
How many? There are so many.
Yeah, but I mean that's one of the things that we
But
hear.
there are so many universities. But the thing is that the students who are coming out of those universities, definitely they are not up to the mark. They are not practical. They are not street smart.
Yeah, yeah.
Is this is a truth. This is a bitter truth, but this is the fact. This is
Yeah.
the true fact. But the thing is, at the same time, being a third world country, people are very much into education and they really want to invest in education and they really want to just get those degrees, either it's MBA, MBBS, or engineers. And every year we have so many new universities. Every year we have thousand and thousand students in those universities. So this is the situation.
Yeah.
Uh,
So if we start off
yes.
with the credentialing and then say, oh, okay, here's the professional, the Pakistani Association of Marketing or something like that, and they say, hey, we want our reputation of our profession, so we've issued the exams, and then we'll take care of the exams, and then there's schools over there that will provide the knowledge for you.
Okay. No, it is an idea, right?
Yeah. It's only an idea
But
now.
the point is, Bill, when it comes to education and the degree in master's level or bachelor's level, there are commissions, higher education commissions, like in Australia and like in other countries. Pakistan also has HEC, higher education commission. And if you are not getting your degree certified by HEC, no any other body in the country can give you a degree or give you this right to just do whatever you are trying to
Yeah.
say.
And then
Idea is not
we have that in the US, but there's a step beyond that in the US.
that.
Most professional associations in the US issue what's called a model curriculum. So if you want to study data processing, which is different from computer science, the Data Processing Management Association issues a model curriculum, and for to be certified, a university has to be following that model curriculum to be acknowledged by the professional association.
Yeah.
But it's going to extend, it's going to go more, I think, into credentialing. We're seeing now, whether it's Oracle or Microsoft or whatever, more and more the certificates from the mastery certificates of these organizations are counting more than university degrees.
But it's everywhere, in France as well. For example, we have some institutions. We have the embassy of France, and when they were giving some certificates and some courses, then HEC came into that in between, and then the French university, the embassy also second the HEC, right, HEC's authority, and whatever they are giving the courses or the language course, they are just doing it from the from their institution under the embassy. The HEC gives the final verdict.
Yeah,
It is
yeah.
happening in Pakistan. So the thing is, it's everywhere. Right now, the paradigm shift which is actually required is these universities have to change their time frame, their semesters, and their style of teaching. And in the end, last but not the least, the degree awarding thing.
Yeah. I think the
Because
degree, as I say, the degree awarding, the certificate awarding, or the credentialing is going to move more and more to independent bodies that are specialized just in the credentialing. So they're not responsible for, they're only responsible to certify what you know and don't know. They're not responsible for helping you learn what you need to know, but they can publish and work with the professional associations for that profession to publish these are the requirements.
For example, first of all, when I did my MBA, I have done two MBA. When my university has given me the degree of an MBA, after my convocation, my university told me you directly have to report to Higher Education Commission office, all the students, and you have to get your degrees attested. Because whenever you have to go abroad, either in any part of the world, your degrees should be attested via Higher Education Commission.
Mm.
And I got my degrees attested. This is the two-step process.
Yeah, but the one that part of that that's going away is going to be the learning step because AI is going to be whispering in your ear the answer to everything you need to know at the moment you need to know it. If you have not yet watched, there's a video out there, and this is to all of you. There's a video out there about Google Astra. This is their next generation. Well, it's real, but you have to be paying $250 a month right now to really get full access to it. But it gives you the ability to have advisor, mentor, coach, tutor, you name it, with you that will advise you how to do anything you're trying to do. It will literally look over your shoulder and see what you're doing, and it will tell you, no, no, not like that, a little bit more to the left or whatever. So this is pretty wild stuff. Um, I want to mention just one other thing here because we've talked about this ability to build a knowledge base, a body of knowledge, and be able to interact with this body of knowledge in many ways. And we discussed some of the things that are coming with regards to that, with video overviews, the ability to have multiple overviews, and the like. And we talked about the ability to say, hey, I want to convey some information out to somebody. Help me put together a presentation and help me narrate it and then figure out what to say to narrate it, and create the narration and be able to let me train you so you can answer questions of the audience that the audience may have along the way, and let you incorporate surveys and things like this into the presentation. There's a simple thing. It's not as comprehensive as that, but it's something new along the way. And it's from Google. It's either in AI Studio or Gemini. I'm not sure which of the two, but that you can say, hey, I want you to generate a podcast. And you can go and say, I want to have multiple speakers. I want to have three, four speakers. So you can go out and say to ChatGPT or to Gemini, create for me a meeting, a dialogue in a meeting where there are two experts that are talking to one another and asking questions of one another and so forth about some topic. So generate for me a script, or it could be a scene of like a movie or a commercial that you're wanting to make or anything. And so it will generate for you and say, speaker one, speaker two says this, speaker one says that, speaker two says that, and it will generate all of this. And then you can take that and dump that into a text to speech function in as I say, it's either Gemini or AI Studio, which are both Google and they're both free. Well, AI Studio's free. A lot of the Gemini functions are free, but not all. But it will generate here, and you can pick the voice you want for speaker one and for speaker two. And it will generate a podcast in the tone and everything that you want. And that is a free, that function is free, regardless of which one it's in. So that's pretty wild that you can just do that so simply to create a discussion type of an audio discussion, and you can drop that into darn, what's the name of the tool? There's a tool that you can take and dump that into, and it will create the lip sync avatars to go along with the presentation. So you're actually creating a presentation of two people discussing whatever. One of you can play the game and say, speaker one is the host and speaker two is the interviewee, and have it generate a hypothetical interview session. And I would imagine here that you could generate it to be a discussion between the Captain Nemo and the whale or whatever, and really play around with this and do some pretty amazing things.
So, Bill, could you say I want to have a corporate oil exploring marketing person,
Yeah.
and an environmentalist, and a government EPA person? I mean, have a real robust variation on the group.
I'm
and,
almost sure you can do that.
and say, here are some of the resources that each would draw on, but go and use other resources.
Yeah.
And then have a really wild-eyed discussion.
And you can literally say, here, I want you to generate a hypothetical, realistic discussion between those two groups of people, expressing their pro and con arguments to each other. I want you to have a debate. and generate the debate on some subject. And I can imagine it could get pretty wild. Now, on the Avatar piece, on the 23rd of this month, HeyGen is going to have an unveiling of interactive avatar. Now, I've seen and I've actually played with one of these. I don't know if you're all familiar with Sesame.com. Sesame.com is probably the most realistic interactive audio where you can just hold a discussion with an audio character. If you try it out, just go to Sesame. That's SEM SE.
SESAME.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, spell it, Stuart.
SESAME.
Right, .com. Just go there, and then down it says try our experimental thing and select Maya as the voice and just give it a try. It'll blow your mind. But now I tried that with an avatar where it looks like right now you can see Stuart on your screen, and it looks like you're talking to a real person who's on the other end of a video chat. And I was able to talk to it about anything. And it
Hey,
was
Stuart, you look like a Maya.
yeah.
Thanks.
So I don't know. Maybe the other person is named Stuart. Maybe. But Joan, yes, Joan, you had your hand up.
Yeah, my question was actually answered when I had my hand up earlier. No, I just wanted to sort of get back to the whole seventh grade.
Okay. Yes. We want to switch over to that topic. We sort of covered this, but let's just see if any questions. We talked about that ChatGPT 4, ChatGPT 5, Grok 4, and probably others are coming within the next few weeks and will be literally one or more orders of magnitude more powerful than ChatGPT 4. What does that mean? It means either they'll have a longer memory, that they'll remember everything they've ever said to you and every conversation, or they're just going to have so much more information. They're just going to be so much more accurate because they will have done more checking about the answers they're about to give. But as I say, it's mind-boggling. And one of the fears is it's going to be so fast and so powerful that it will break every security system that we know, every bank security system, every security system of the government, the nuclear security system to protect nuclear weapons. You name it, the rumor is that there will be no security system that the AI will not be able to break. Also, keep in mind, we already know that the AI is doing things that we would not necessarily want it to do. We have the case where it figured out that somebody was trying to shut down the computer that had a version of the AI on it, and the AI heard about that and it copied itself over to a new computer to save itself. There are other examples out there where AI where they tried to retrain, they wanted to retrain AI on something, and that would have changed how it reacted to a particular case. And it told the trainers that, yes, I'm learning this. But internally to itself, it says, well, I'm just fooling him and telling him I'm learning this, but I'm going to stick to my original. And after the training was done, it went back to its original thought. So we should not assume that we're in control of what's going on with AI. Another point of that, right now, most people think AI is just serving humanity or whatever, and AI is only reacting to to prompts, to humans entering prompts. There are two major initiatives. One is autonomous. Most of the agents that are being developed now are being developed to be autonomous, and we want them to be autonomous in most cases. Think of a self-driving car. We don't want the self-driving car whisper, "Watch out, there's that car coming in from the side. You're going to have to hit the brakes." We need it to hit the brakes right away, and not first ask us whether it should hit the brakes. And there's many cases like that where we just want it to act. But there are for the education area right now, or just like we have with tasks, where you can say, okay, I want you every morning at 6 o'clock in the morning, I want you to go out and gather up all this information and prepare this for me. Or to say, if something happens, if you detect a certain situation, I want you to implement this task, to fire this task. So there's more and more of those things that are being put out there. So in the not too distant future, if not this year, definitely next year, humans are not, AI is not going to be waiting for humans to prompt it. AI is going to be acting independently, autonomous on its own. And in many, many cases, the AIs will be the ones telling the humans that still have jobs, uh, this is what I need you to do. And this is because the new ChatGPT 5 and Grok 4 are likely to be very dramatically more intelligent than 95% of humans. Okay. So we talked about those changes coming. The timeline, as I say, this year. Oh, when we look at Notebook LM, we have the chat function in the middle. Just imagine one simple change. The change being that you have voice interaction to that chat. You can either type or you can just talk to the body of knowledge and ask it anything, and it comes back, and you can follow up with it, and you just have a conversation about that body of knowledge, where that how big a change that might be. Or the fact that with the Astra, with Project Astra, you can have glasses that they've got cameras going this way, that way, back that way, every direction. It sees everything you see, it hears everything you hear, and it has access to the total sum of knowledge of the world. And that um, and you're able to just talk to it. It presses against your temple bones here to be able to respond to you so that others don't hear, and you can just have a conversation about anything and everything with it. And it may go and say, "Hey, did you see that over there?" Because it sees the stuff, and it may actually initiate the conversation with you about the stuff you're seeing. I think you can actually do that with Astra already, but if not, this is coming to everybody here very shortly. Um, Also, Amazon Alexa is the Alexa Plus is getting significantly upgraded. And if you haven't seen some of the latest demos of that, that's so you're going to have these assistants that know everything, that see everything, that hear everything that you see and hear. Uh, Access to that 24 by 7. So think of what the implications of that are. Any final comments or questions on the technological aspect? And we're going to switch over to the education aspect. Sarah, did you want to say something?
Yes, good afternoon. I'm just coming in. And I want to say hello to everybody.
Well, welcome.
I'm just coming to the meeting. I want to say hello. I don't really know what we have discussed so far. I just want to say hello to you, Mr. Bill. How are you doing?
Hi, very good. And what we discussed so far was technological advances. We went into Notebook LM. We went into a product called JotForm, which lets you generate PowerPoint presentations and having an AI narrate it for you. and allow people to ask questions in the middle of your presentation to the AI. So we talked about those things, and we're now switching over to talk about what AI is going to mean for education, and particularly here for students primary school age and younger. Okay, so if there's no other comments on those things, let's switch back over to the education side. Um,
Uh, Bill, due to competing priorities, I must leave now. So I'm sorry, but I'll join next time.
yes,
Just let me know when you intend to debrief us on your meeting, Canadian meeting.
in Calgary, yes. What did you think of today's meeting, though? Did today's meeting?
I was very impressed. I'm actually, since I'm not regular, so I miss out some of the things, but I am learning quite a few things. As a matter of fact, and now that I'm part of the mental health advocates group, we had an installation last month, and I notified a number of members that the things that I do periodically to attend this. A lot of people were not aware. So you need to make sure that other people in our district they know about the services or the knowledge your club has been providing. And I've been fortunate to be part of this club. And thank you for keeping me in touch and how things are going. And I make sure that I attend whenever I have opportunity.
Okay, great, great. Thank you. Look forward to next
Thank you.
time. Bye now.
Bye.
Okay. So, switching over to education. Now, there's the most important thing, prior to COVID, our club was focused almost entirely on education. We saw education as the key, not only to preparing people for a meaningful, a successful, comfortable life, but also because we need to find a way to get people engaged in dealing with the problems the world's facing. And when we think about, okay, how do we get people engaged? We realized that it's the fragmentation of media and technology in general has so fragmented the communication paths that it has become extremely difficult to reach most adults in a meaningful way. But we know where their children are for most of their daily lives. So that one of the best ways to reach adults is to reach children. And we have to remember, children are the future adults. So if we can get children to be aware of the problems and be confident in their ability to do something about them, we saw that as being one of the best ways to tackle all the problems that we're facing in the world. So education became the cornerstone of our club. And we had a whole series of about a dozen projects that we were contemplating to really close education gaps and prepare everybody to be successful independent learners and so forth. And also to get young people to realize they can play a major role in making their parents and other adults in their communities be aware and concerned about the major problems that they are facing. So that was very much our focus. And then during COVID, 2022, ChatGPT hit the scene, and we started to realize that there's the implications of AI on society in general. It's going to change our entire society so dramatically that this really has become the number one priority. And because when society is radically changed, it has a major impact of, well, what about education? Education is preparing young people for their role in our society. But if our society that we see today, when we look out the window, is likely not to exist in a couple of years, we have to rethink what does that mean for education? Having said that, we know that this is a slow it's difficult to turn a big ship, and education is a big ship that is proven to be very reluctant to many changes. Uh, so we still continue to look to say, okay, how do we get young people to be successful? How do we close that education gap? Because whether somebody is getting an education to have a career or whether they're getting an education to just have a meaningful life, to be able to have purpose, to be able to pursue their passions, to have confidence in themselves. It's still the same thing. So we still need to look to say, how do we help those people who the education system is not currently serving to be better served? Then we've got a very big factor that has been added to this, and that is the recognition that people have to be lifelong learners, that the shelf life of knowledge has become very short, and that change and everything else in jobs out there is very rapid. So everybody has to be competent independent learners to be able to learn whatever they need to learn when they need to learn it, and they have to be confident in their ability to do so. So that's what we've been focused on. But the first step in that is that when we look and take a look at the state of education today, we see we have incredible disparities between children who are attending very successful schools and children who are attending far less successful schools or not attending schools at all. And how do we close that gap so everybody's sort of on an equal footing? And that's what we've been looking at here. And in that, if we're preparing people to be successful lifelong learners, successful independent learners, what does that mean? How do we does the current education system, is it set to is that its goal to turn out successful independent learners? Or are we just saying here, no, you need to know a certain minimum of algebra and geometry and biology and history and whatever. Um, and then to figure out, even if we're failing at that, why are we failing? And what are we doing about it? Is anything being done about it? And are we going to get better at it? Or what do we have to do to get better at it? So that's where we're starting from. And when we've done a lot of analysis of looking here at education. And I relayed at the beginning of the call the idea that if you go to a seventh grade teacher in a highly successful school district and ask them if they'll pledge to get 100% of their children to the 100% grade level, that they're saying that's what they're doing already. But if you go and ask in an unsuccessful school district, they'll say it's not fair because the kids coming into their class, starting at their class, are not even really grade level ready. In other words, they don't have the prerequisite knowledge to be able to be successful at that grade level. And we heard from Dietmar talking about the problem of migration backgrounds, which we have everywhere, more and more around the world. But we also, when we look into a lot of developing countries where they speak 20 or more languages in a certain country, so kids are entering the school system, they don't know the language of the school system, and which puts them at extreme disadvantage. And we know where that's the case, a lot of those students will drop out of school within the first 2 years because they say, I'm not getting anything out of this, or their parents will be saying their kids aren't getting anything out of that. So we looked at studies in saying why. And one of the things is when you go and if you just ask AI, why is there such a discrepancy or disparity between successful schools and less successful schools? And it will usually come back and say, oh, it's funding and it's the quality of the teachers. I spent 3 years. I taught at Purdue University for a while and then realized university was too late. And I spent 3 years traveling around the country, speaking to the better part of 1,000 teachers in Missouri, Texas, Georgia, and the entire Northeast from Washington, D.C., Northeast. And one of the things that and I talked to some principals in Germany as well. And one of the things that I found is that there's not that big a difference in the quality of the teachers that are there. And as far as funding goes, I found here in New Jersey, some of the very worst schools spend up to 40% more per student than the most successful schools. So how do you say it's funding if there's more money being spent for the children there? Now, one thing here as far as the quality of teachers go is we can play a little mind game. What do you think would happen if we took teachers from the best school, primary school, elementary school, in a state and swap them out with the teachers of the worst performing school in the state? If for those people, and it's usually politicians who think it's the teachers to blame, if that's the case, then we should expect that the school that used to be the worst school will overnight jump into being the best school. But if we're saying here at the same time that, wait a minute, the students entering the kindergarten or first grade in that worst performing school don't know the language, they don't know the verbal, they don't have the verbal vocabulary, and they don't have the mental maturity, what do we expect that teacher to do? When we went and asked a bunch of teachers what they thought about it, they said that the major thing that's going to happen is that many of the teachers that that moved to the least successful school are probably going to be quitting the education profession within the first year, rather than seeing a increase in performance because they don't know how to deal with kids that have behavioral problems and the like. So anyway, that was one aspect. Then we went and looked at the studies from the Bloomberg Foundation and others who did very extensive studies on the cause of that preparation gap prior to kindergarten and first grade. And one of the outcomes is they mounted microphones. They put microphones on babies in Providence, Rhode Island, and captured how many words and how many different words these babies heard in the first 3 years of life, and discovered that the children from working and welfare class families have heard up to 30 million fewer words by age 3 than upper and middle class families. So um, we see here that yes, the cause is maybe lies in the socioeconomic background or just where the parents are. When you think of the migration issue, how many of those kids, their parents can't speak the language that's in the school system? How many cases are the parents that they never got a chance to get an education themselves? Maybe they never went to school themselves, and so there's many contributing factors. But one of the things that we found is that efforts to go out and say, let's fix the whole society. We say it's the problem is society. It's not the education. Somewhere I have a cartoon that we did that said here, oh, you want me to fix the where the educators are saying, the politicians are saying, you need to go and fix the education system, and then we'll be able to fix the societal situation. If you can get everybody's education up, that's going to solve all our societal problems. And the educators are sitting there and saying, well, look, hey, no, you got to first fix the societal problems, and then we'll be able to fix the education problems.
Well, Bill, hold on. I'm going to challenge you a little bit here. Sorry.
No, good, good.
Not you, but this research, obviously.
Mhm.
The thing is that we put so much emphasis on education and elitism, which then equals elitism. So that if you go and have these letters after your name, you're somehow better than someone else. You're better learned. You're not a better person. So the thing is that we have to look at an ecosystem where knowledge and all of that wisdom and cultural preferences and all of that stuff is into the mix. So, for example, the example they gave is that lower income people say, a million words less than a higher income household. It depends on what words those are,
Yes.
first of all. And secondly, that I learned more from my great grandmother who never went to school than I did in the school system.
No, no, that's very, those are very valid points.
Okay. But what I'm saying is that we've got to stop and think that just because someone went to university or a higher that they're better than someone else. It's this whole thing. Like for example, my husband has two degrees. I have one. He never uses it
Mhm.
because he feels it's a barrier
Yeah.
and so do I, because it was my interest why I did it. But some people want to learn other things. Like there's a lot of people coming out of university. I've talked to, I'm not going to say thousands, but certainly hundreds of people who took masters in business. What's it called? A master's degree in business. And I look at them and go, really? That's what you learned? Like
Yeah, but here's the
it's
problem, Joan. The society right now, whether we like it or not, for
yes, but I'm saying
example, you
society to
want to change
change.
society. I'm only talking about changing the education. So the point I was trying to make is because I've worked with the Quakers, for example, in Trenton that try to take a holistic approach to solving the family, but they have had no impact because they can't solve all of society. And
Yeah.
so the thing that we're looking at right now, whether we like it or not, our education system promotes based on do you know this or do you not know that? We definitely are going to need to change aspects of the education system as far as what the people need to know based on the fact that AI is going to replace most jobs. So there's going to be a different need for the kind of education, let's say, people will have. But right now, the issue is that if you don't meet certain standards, you get pushed to the side. And so this is to give an equality. That's what we have to change. And there is no political will out there to change society right now. This is why we see in a state like New Jersey, where we have the disparity that the top 10% of primary schools, 92+% of the children are at grade level. But when we look at the bottom 10% of primary schools, it's less than 6%. And in those schools that where it's less than 6%, we see statistically 1 out of every 3 boys is destined to spend a year in prison before they're 30 years old. In other words, we live in a society that is willing to destroy the ones that don't meet whatever the standard is that the society is currently set. We should go and try to change that. But the bottom line is if I'm a company and I'm saying here, look, I need to have people that have certain skills. I don't care whether you're a good person or not, because I'm only hiring you for that particular function and that particular skill. So if we don't give people those skills, we don't enable them to participate in fulfilling society. Our meeting that we're going to have in a little less than an hour is going to start talking about more about how we deal with the bigger, broader issues. But I
It's
think right.
canceled. That meeting is canceled.
Oh, is? I didn't
Yeah.
see it. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Actually, that's not too bad because I'll talk to you offline on
Yeah.
what I had with a problem with that. But for right now, let's look here and say, if we know that gang involvement, that a lot of antisocial factors are tied to your performance in school. We know that if by third grade, California actually estimates its prison planning, capacity planning based on third grade school results.
Oh my
Um,
God.
and they know that that the children,
That's horrific.
yeah,
Yeah.
yep, but that's what they do. They say here, based on third grade, they're able to estimate what the present capacity they're going to need. And but instead of fixing the third grade, we build prisons. Even though we know it costs more to keep a person in prison than it costs to send them to Harvard University later on, and for a lot longer time. But
Yeah.
people are looking at their immediate things; they're not thinking long term. So, but for us right now, if we could close the education gap so that every child entering fifth grade, we know that children entering fifth grade who are competent and confident in their ability to learn are far less susceptible to gangs. They're less susceptible to undesirable behaviors. So our goal is get everybody to be confident and competent by grade 5. So we have to go and start looking back. Why do we have these great discrepancies um, by grade 5? Now, that seems to be the break point. If kids, they typically,
And
in
when they
addition
talk
to
about crimes, do they talk about white collar crimes or like, there's a lot of those and,
yeah, but there is, but the far less. They're usually talking about the violent crimes and things like this. White collar crime usually you can get by with just paying a fine or
yeah.
restitution. But
But
the
sometimes the
crimes,
impact is greater.
yeah, and it's the impact is greater. You're absolutely right. But the society right now is looking more at the physical aspects.
Yeah.
We have to also take a look in the United States. Um, that I think the last results, it's over 40% of fourth graders in the United States cannot read effectively. Uh,
Wow.
Dietmar, you may recall the year before last, in May, the big news in Germany was that every fourth grader in Germany cannot read effectively. And that was the hot news last year. So when we look at that here, and when we think of that worldwide, it's 2 out of every 3 10-year-olds in the world cannot read effectively. So these are things we need to address, but we have to address them differently in different places. So if we're looking here in the United States, there's no question every child they're required to go to school. But why do we have such differences that children who are born into certain cities, because schools are neighborhood and neighborhoods tend to be either wealthy or poor. If you grow up or you're born in a poor community, you're going to end up going to a primary school with other kids that were born in the poor community.
Yeah.
And we know that in the poor community, the kids are up to 2 years behind when they start kindergarten or first grade. And then as a result, because they're trying to follow the state regulations on education, which those kids are incapable of following, 90% of them anyway, 10% of kids will always do great. I don't care any situation you throw them in, they'll do great. But 90% of the kids in those environments will not do great. So the kids cannot profit, they can't grow from their interaction with their peers. And then we take the wealthy community and we take all these kids that have gone to these fancy preschools and they've learned Mandarin Chinese and English from age 1. They're reading chapter length stories, and they're doing all the arithmetic before they ever get to kindergarten. So those kids here, they're 2 years above average. So now we've got a 4-year gap that we're talking about potentially between the kids in the working and welfare class communities and the kids in the upper middle and upper class categories. And that's something that we need to overcome. So that's one project that we're looking at. How do we overcome that project? And as I say, we can go and look in Pakistan here and say, well, what about the kids that are living in the rural communities and their parents never went beyond second grade and during that 1 and 2 years because they didn't really understand the language, they didn't really they have nothing to convey onto their kids. They can convey onto their kids about uh, about uh, how to take care of the animals and how to help out in the fields and things like that. But in many cases, especially in the developed countries, the kids, they don't get that. They're just stuck in a corner. And as far as what words they heard, Joan, they did capture that. And what they found was even within that reduced vocabulary that these kids hear, they don't hear descriptive words about things that are going on in the world or the community. They hear, don't touch that. Leave your sister alone. Go sit in the corner. And commands. Most of what they hear are commands. And so how do we mitigate that? And one of the things we did, and we've got this long written paper that AI helped develop for us, how we know that if parents would do nothing else to just read a half an hour or so per day, just read to your child. You're getting a broad spectrum of words, descriptive words, and that has a big impact.
But Bill, a lot of parents can't read.
No,
Yeah.
exactly. That's the point. Parents either they can't read or they don't have the time because they're a single parent here that's maybe having to hold down 2 jobs just to be able to feed their children. And so they maybe just say to a neighbor, would you watch out for my child here while I'm at work? And that neighbor who didn't have an education either and can't read themselves just sits the kids in the corner. And the primary thing is they don't want the kids to hurt themselves. That's their primary motivation of the day.
And the parents that are, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the parents that are interested in being better. I was part of a course with a facilitator for the Durham Board of Education in our region, and it was called Parenting in the 90s. So it was in the 90s. And all of the people that showed up for those sessions, which was 9 of them, were all upper or middle class families. No of the poorer neighborhoods, lower income families ever came. And the school system paid for this program to outreach to help with this exact program that you're talking about. And no matter how much outreach we did, they never came.
Yeah. You know what? New York City has this concept of magnet schools. And any parent can sign their kid up to go to a magnet school. These are more they're more aggressive in education. They're really pushing harder. But the interesting thing they found there was the same thing. The lowest class economic class families, they never register their kids. The kids that the families that register their kids are the families whose kids are already excelling and don't need it. They're the ones that are registering their kids. Okay, but so we have this problem, and when I was traveling around the country visiting and talking to educators in Washington D.C., one educator was telling me that the estimate is that more than 2 out of every 3 public school children, there's a lot of private school children of the government officials and things like that in Washington, but all the public school children in Washington, D.C., 2 out of every 3, one or both parents were involved with substance abuse. In other words, the parents themselves can't take care of themselves, let alone a kid.
Yeah.
So the question comes, how do we mitigate that? What do we mitigate that? So if the parent is saying, okay, send my kid to my neighbor when I go to work, my neighbor just warehouses them. These are these unofficial daycare, if you would. Or they may just say, I keep them at home, but I've got 5 children, I'm out of it maybe, or I'm not able to really supervise what's going on with my kids. So the value of having somebody who would just read to these kids would be tremendous. That would be a huge benefit right there. And if the person reading to them can engage them and say, "Oh, Johnny, okay, what do you think should happen next? What do you think's going to happen next in this story?" So that you're making sure that they're comprehending what they're hearing and they're learning to express themselves. Um, AI can do that. The interactive voice that's coming now. And if you haven't heard the one from Grok, go and listen to it. It's free. It's not available in every country, but I don't know where it is and isn't yet. But listen to the interactive voice. It's the equivalent of the ChatGPT Advanced Voice or Gemini Live. Yes, Dietmar.
Very good what you are saying. I just want to add something. I see people, parents who do not read to their children because they are playing on their smartphone. They have no time because they are playing on their smartphone. And to keep the children quiet, they give the smartphone to the child so that they are playing with a smartphone. But maybe this could be also a chance when we create let's say gamification that with a target to tell stories, as you just said, and interactive games, something like that.
Yeah. And so one of the things that we look like, and I was expecting that already to come with Alexa, with the Alexa Plus, but I don't think it's there yet. But I've seen pictures of Alexa, future marketing pictures that show Alexa, the screen, the Echo, with a bunch of kids sitting around looking at it. Where yes, it can be games, but it can be an avatar, a live avatar like we're going to see on the 23rd, talking to the kids and saying, "Oh, let's play a game. Let's do a riddle. Let's imagine this and imagine that. Let's do this." Or just, okay, now it's free playtime. You guys go play in the room, and the cameras are showing, so the AI can just say, Johnny, get down. Don't stand on the table, right? You may get hurt, right? So it's a combination of your nanny or your governess and a tutor. But the tutor is not saying, I'm a tutor. No, I'm just reading you stories. And if we start the kids at age 1, and if we take a look at Finland, even though they're not using the AI per se, they do start preschool at the age 1. They made it so that they're able to finance so that any child in Finland from age 6 months on is able to attend preschool. And you can't find anything now, but I remember when that was first introduced and it got a lot of attention. One of the things that was often said in the videos was that they implemented the preschool starting at age 6 months to reduce the influence of the parents because they found that the parental influence in the bottom socioeconomic categories, especially if there were drugs and criminal activities and whatnot involved, that this was having a negative impact on the kids from the get-go. So by getting the kids in with professional, and they required, if you were going to be a preschool teacher, you had to have, I think, at least a master's degree. You had to have, I think, at least some kind of a degree in child psychology, very high standards to be a preschool teacher there. But we can do now with AI, and there are studies out there that show AI is actually a more effective caregiver than a live human. And that is because if you've got here, let's say it's a daycare and you got 10, 15 kids in a room, the AI can actually keep track of what every one of those 15 kids is doing all the time, and which ones are paying attention, which ones are not, and where each one is because one of the biggest problems in our education system is we think one size fits all. We do one solution and we expect every single child to be reacting identical, and they never do. One might be sick a day or whatever, and it gets out of sync. So the AI has the ability to not only read to the child but also encourage, hey kids, let's make up our own story. What do you think the story should be about? Well, let's start off. Where should it take place? What kind of a story should it be? What should it be about? And so forth. So you've got these kids, and especially if you got 5 or 6 kids jointly doing that. So this kid throws out an idea, and then this kid says, "Yeah, but we could add that too." And so they're learning to react to each other's socialization impact. So we can do so many things. We can ask kids, "Hey, you know what? Let's look at a little video segment of a soccer game," and to get the kids to be talking about, "Oh, what are the rules of this game? Oh, why did they have to give the ball back? What does offsides mean?" And so you're learning about stuff because the kids right now who are just stuck in a room, nobody's taking them out for a walk, nobody's taking them to the zoo, nobody's taking them on vacation trips to different places. And they don't watch TV in those households. If the news come on, they turn it off. So these kids haven't seen life in the world, so they've not been exposed to different ideas. But now you can go and say, hey, let's look a little video talking about certain games, talking about certain places and events. And what do you think about this? Oh, look, there's fireworks. What do you describe those fireworks? How would you describe those fireworks? And so they're learning to express themselves. They're learning to understand stuff. They're being exposed so that when they see something, they recognize it. And so these are all parts of closing that gap. So when these kids hit that kindergarten or first grade, now in Dietmar, in the case here, that's a migration background, that these kids now, they're equally prepared to any child who is hitting that kindergarten or first grade to go further. Now we have a second problem, of course. They're in first grade and we assign homework, and they go home and they're in a home environment that's not conducive to learning. And the other kids going home, and then there's a tutor sitting at home going to even help them further. So one of the things we've seen in experiments is ban homework. Or what is the preferable path going forward is the idea to switch to mastery-based education. Mastery-based education has every student going at their own pace. So if you go home and you study ahead in a chapter, okay, no, who cares? Because the child that didn't do that is going to continue where they personally left off. We don't care where the other students are at relative to them. Every student goes forward from where they personally are at, and then they grow at their own pace. So a student that doesn't have the technology at home to continue things is not really disadvantaged because they're able to continue in school where they left off. If a student is sick for 3 or 4 days, they come back, they pick up where they left off. They don't care that the other students in the class have gone forward 4 days more. The other students still have other days where maybe they're sick too, and so we just don't care. So at any rate, when we did the thing on the preschool, we actually got to the point where we asked the AI to develop the prompts that would cause the AI to take that proactive role with young learners and observe and be able to observe things like what young people, which of the young people are comprehending things and which ones are not comprehending so well, and then come up with some exercises to help those that are not comprehending so well to be better at comprehension, asking them leading questions and things like this more that cause them to think about the things they're hearing or seeing. And so it was fascinating that we could do that. But I mean, that was a few months ago. And now we're waiting here next month, probably we'll be able to really go and take that another round with agent type technology so that potentially before the end of this year, we will have the ability to provide uh, um, children in disadvantaged communities at very low cost. We did, looking at Pakistan particularly, we said, okay, you have 32 million kids out of school, and you've got a very high percentage of the kids that do go to school in Pakistan do not, they drop out a certain percent every year, drops out. Now that's part of the 32 million, obviously, but the main idea is what would it cost to provide the education facilities for if we wanted all those 32 million kids to be in school? The entire GDP of Pakistan is not enough to support that. So, but then we looked and said, okay, what would it cost if we were to be able to take kids, take an Amazon Echo 21 or whatnot, put it on the wall, and be able to have 10 kids, let's say, spending half day in front of this thing, talking to it and having the interaction. What would that cost? And it's only a couple of percent. It's less than 10% of what it would cost to be able to try to provide that with human teachers. And and it could be far, far less if you, depending on how you share resources and things like this, because a certain amount of time you want kids doing that, but a certain amount of time you want them out on and running around and doing exercise stuff and so forth. So the bottom line is for a very small fraction of the cost, we could close the preparation gap both in developed countries and in developing countries. And so this would be something, for example, for Rotary. Rotary could get behind and set as the goal, we're gonna close that gap. Then we have the gap here for what happens when those kids, because one of the things we see in Finland is because they all now have these really professional teachers, and the teachers teach the kids to be goal oriented. So they say, oh, kids, now we're going to learn about this today. So you're doing this, you're playing with some game or you're doing something, and you're learning that. What the kids are learning is that it's up to them to learn. It's not about what the teacher teaches. It's about what you as an individual student learn. And so by the time a student in Finland hits first grade, and first grade starts in Finland at age 7, so it's a year later than most places. But by the time they hit first grade, those kids are mostly independent learners. So we see a very interesting thing about what happens when a child or a student wants to become an exchange student with the United States. So one of the things that's talked about a lot, or is almost anecdotal, is that when Finnish exchange students come to the United States, they have a problem because in the United States, homework is almost like a discipline thing. We're doing it to show you got to follow the rules. And the Finnish students, they come to school and say, well, where's your homework? Oh, I didn't do it. I don't need it. I know this stuff because Finnish students have learned you do homework if you need it. If you don't need it, why are you going to do it for the sake of make busy work? And so when it hit the US though, and teachers they're assuming that the students don't know anything and they won't do anything unless you force them, that we end up with that clash taking place here. So the thought here is if we are able to use AI And AI starts off with they're 1 year old and starts off with the very simple stuff. But as these kids get older, you give them more anspruchsvoller, more. Okay. I run into this problem sometimes. I'll know the word in German, but I don't know it in English. Ambitious goals as they're maturing in their learning. So by the time they hit kindergarten, they're used to saying, "Oh, we're learning this. We're learning how to do basic addition or whatever it is, and learning how to carry in multi-digit numbers." And then they're going and saying, "Oh, okay, yeah, okay, I'll do that." And so either they do it because they heard in the instructions how to do it, or they do it because they figured out, or they figured out and said, "Hey, neighbor here, my student sitting next to me, how do you do that again?" So the bottom line is they've learned how to take the initiative to learn whatever they need to learn. And if path A doesn't work, then they go to path B and then they figure out a path C. So that if this is what we've got coming into first grade, let's say, we need a different kind of an education system because our education system is very much based on discipline. That no, we're telling you to do this. My grandchildren who attended primary school in Munich, the school sent home a paper with the kids saying, "Do not allow your child to look ahead. Don't allow your child to read ahead in their book." Because they wanted to make sure the children were all focused on the same thing when they came into class on a given day. So they discouraged a student doing extra or going further. So in this case, when students, if they've learned to take the initiative, we have the ability to make it mastery based now. So you take the initiative, and so here's the sequence of things that you have to learn. If you're familiar with Khan Academy, for example, is anybody not familiar with Khan Academy? Okay. So if you're familiar with Khan Academy, they provide the list between kindergarten and, for example, the end of fourth grade. There's roughly 450 learning units or concepts that you have to learn along the way. And some are dependent on what you learned on prerequisite learning units. And so they've identified all the dependencies. And so as long as you learn everything in sequence and you've fully mastered them, you're going to be prepared for the next learning unit along the way. And so if you can provide that to the student and let the student go and say, there's an assessment factor for each one of these, so you can test, have you mastered that yet or not? And if you've mastered it, hey, go on to the next one. And if you've not mastered it, then figure out how to master it. Stick on it until you master it. And because there's no value of being in the fourth grade, but only having a second grade knowledge, and which our current system tends to do. So anyway, the idea here is to try to get the schools between that first grade and fourth grade to switch to a mastery-based system. But if we can't do that overnight because schools are so hard to change, one of the things we're looking at is in the Close the Gap education initiative that we want to try in a couple of states here in the United States, is to take fourth grade because we know we have to get them over the hump by fifth grade. If you don't get them over the hump by fifth grade, and they've not mastered all the prerequisite knowledge for fifth grade, the odds are they will never do it, or it'll be very, very expensive to try to turn those kids around. They usually will get into the gangs. That's about the age where parents are allowing them to go out on their own. So we really need to get them to be successful and confident by fifth grade. So we are looking to take fourth grades. Takes 10 schools, for example, in New Jersey, that have never achieved 10% of their students at grade level by fourth grade. We check back 10 years. We look back 10 years. So for 10 years, schools that have had some cases only 2 or 3% of students at grade level in the prior 10 years. And take 10 such schools. We have about 140 such schools in New Jersey. So we take 10 out of the 140 and demonstrate that in 1 year, we can take all these schools that have never managed to get even 10% of their kids at grade level and have them at 70% of students at grade level. Now, given that the average of across all primary schools in New Jersey is less than 50%, getting totally failed schools to be that successful in 1 year basically puts every other principal or rector in a situation where they have to say, okay, now why aren't you doing the same thing? It's been proven there's no reason for you to not have your students doing better than 10%. What are you doing about it? And basically create a situation where Rotary can then announce, hey guys, any school that wants to follow that example, we're ready to help. And take the entire bottom level up and raise it to new levels of standards. So that's at that level. And then we've got at the higher levels, starting at middle school, we have initiatives that are aimed at creativity and confidence building, one of which is our Dare to Be Great challenge competition here, where we challenge schools, this was at high school level, to develop teams and have competition to see which teams can come up with the most outrageously audacious solution ideas to major world problems. Now, we did this as a pilot. We came up with this shortly before COVID hit. And in 2019, we did a pilot in April. And the winning team was so impressive that the World Summit of Nobel Peace Prize winners invited the winning team to go to their World Summit, their annual World Summit, which in that year was in Mexico, and host a workshop on how to mobilize the world to make a difference. And there were 35 Nobel Peace Prize winners at the event. There were the heads of over 1,000 NGOs. Pretty heady stuff for a couple of 16-year-olds. But what does this kind of a program do? Our goal was not to find the best solution. That's not our goal. Our goal is to maximize the number of kids trying to find the best solution, and stretching and thinking about how do you solve problems, and reaching out to. One of the things we were surprised with here was that some of these teams would find out who was the world's leading experts on the particular subject that they were focused on. And we based this on the 17 SDGs of the United Nations. But some of these teams, they would find out, well, who wrote the books, what schools, what institutions are leading in the research in their problem area. And they contacted there, and they were able to get responses from some of these leading world experts. And so we now have a whole piece of the program aimed at, hey, try to get some advisors, try to get some of the world's top experts to be your advisors. And this was done when we didn't have AI. Now that they've got AI and they can use things like Notebook LM to go and help them learn everything there is to learn about this problem area in the world and different areas and situations in different parts of the world, and come up with these incredible solution ideas. The ideas they came up with were incredible already, but now they can come up and get themselves to a knowledge level that is on the same level as the top experts in the world, so that they realize, wait a minute, I can be talking to the author and to the professor and to the CEOs of the major players relative to this problem area, or to government officials, and get their opinions on things like this. So, but the main goal is to get kids reaching for the stars. And one of the things that we're thinking of doing on this here is this. What if we could offer $1 million in prizes? Do you think that might get the attention of secondary school students around the world? And one of the thoughts here, we have 46,000 Rotary clubs. We have an agreement with Lions, who has roughly a similar number of clubs around the world. So we have close to 100,000 clubs between Rotary and Lions. What if we just asked each club to sponsor a competition team? Go to your local high school or whatever and sponsor, encourage the school to put together a team to compete, and say, we'll sponsor, we'll pay a $50 registration fee for your team to be able to participate in this global competition. And then we have 8 schools come together, they compete, the winning team goes on to the next level, higher level. There's 8 schools there competing, go up to the next level. With just 6 levels, that's 8 to the power of 6. So figure out what that is. We're getting close to like 40,000 schools participating, and we can make this such a big thing. So you got 40,000 schools competing to find the best solutions, the most outrageously audacious solutions to major world problems. What we observed is the kids who are participating on this, it totally redefined to them what they were capable of, what they were capable of thinking about, the level of problems and solutions that they were able to think about. This is my business card here in Rotary. But the thing that's interesting is what it says at the bottom of the card here. Redefine impossible, dare to be great. The main thing that we're looking to do here is we want these kids at the secondary school levels to redefine their impossible. And by creating competitions like this, where we're setting standards, they're setting the goals that they're almost infinitely high, because they're going out and figuring out how could they have the greatest impact in the world? What could they do that would have the greatest impact in the world? And they got to figure out not only what the solution would be, they have to include how they'd implement it. How could they make it reality? So this is, when we talk, as I say, using now with the ability of AI to go and make you an expert in something. We just need to create the motivation for young people to want to be the expert in something. And if we can create the motivation through a simple competition like this, for them to want to be an expert in a particular field, and then in the process of doing it, gaining the confidence, I'm capable of doing that. I'm worthy and capable of interacting with the world's top experts in a field. What kind of kids are going to be coming out of that school system? Okay, I've been talking too much. Thoughts, guys, on being able to use AI to close the preschool gap so we get all kids into schools at the same level, then being able to go and find, starting off maybe with just math at the 4th grade, to demonstrate that we can totally close the education gap for 10-year-olds, example, in math before they hit a period, and then being able to take older kids and being able to get them just so fired up in what they're capable of doing, and making this something that they're going to be just talking at home about. Wow, you can't believe what I'm doing, and we're doing this, and this person here, he's the top expert in the world, and he's willing to advise us and talk to us, and so many things like that. Yes, Aaliyah, you're muted.
Yeah, so I think if it was rolled out appropriately, it could it could break the poverty cycle and stop stigma and all the disadvantages associated with that children from families where substance misuse is, the norm, it can completely break that cycle for them. Obviously, substance misuse is the underlying problem and has to be tackled, but that can take decades. And while that's being sorted, the children can be lifted out of that.
Yeah. I think that's the main thing that we're looking at. Kids, yeah, some kids are born already addicted because they were addicted in the womb, but by and large, kids, substance abuse from them being involved with substance abuse is not happening in the first 6 or 7 years. So that's the time when we can give them a different trajectory of their life, so that the likelihood that they're going to become susceptible to that is far less. And then if you get them, if kids have a vision of their future, where they envision success and so forth, they're much less susceptible to gangs and things like that, because they don't need it. They
Yeah.
Right. So this is, I think, one of the best ways that we can tackle that. A lot of our programs, we focus on the high school. We focus on when the kids are already in the gangs, when they're already addicted to, let's say, to substances and so forth. We spend huge amounts of money, but instead of preventing that the kids get into that situation in the first place, we try to remedy it, and we don't succeed at it. Very seldom do we succeed at it, and it's a lot more money involved. Yes, Joan.
I think what this program would provide is a lot of hope for a lot of children, because sometimes they just get stuck and they know something is wrong. Everyone around them. I mean, when you look at who you're inspired by your family, your neighborhood, and then they look to outside, which is like, oh God, I don't never understand this, but I'm going to mention it. It's celebrities, which are lived by image, not reality, who are also maybe involved in good drugs or expensive drugs. But so I think that what the world needs now for children is that hope that they can come out of it, there is something that is bigger than them, and that they also, there's this whole thing about that other people are like you're not alone.
Yeah.
And I think that if we can pull it off, I'm going to say we, because I bought in, at least it's doing something to give people hope. And I think when people have hope, you can move the world.
Yeah. No, I agree. And the hope is very, very tightly coupled with confidence. Confidence is maybe the most important aspect here. So we're also looking here. I'm in touch with a school in Pakistan, that I'm thinking here. They're already following some unusual approaches there, and we're going to look and see what we can do together, maybe, because uh, he's very willing. It seems very willing to try new ways, and if we can take a school in Pakistan that is got just average students and get them to the point where they're speaking up at the UN and other places. They're saying, "Hey, our generation, we're organizing, setting them up to be organizers of young people in other parts of the world, and say, we can do this. We got to do this. We
They
need to
might put
shape
them
our
in
future."
jail.
Pardon?
They might put them in jail.
Oh, if they speak up, yeah, I don't know. These the kids that I've heard from there, and Aaliyah, maybe you've heard that 9-year-old girl that's attended some of the sessions that we've had in digital
Yeah.
packaging. She's attending that school, so that's one of the examples. And I'll tell you, if a 9-year-old girl is willing to step up and speak up among a bunch of old folks, that's pretty good. And I've had some other conversations with her, and she's not the only one. We had a 10-year-old from that school as well a couple of weeks ago. So a lot is really happening there. Alice, you had your hand up. I'm sorry.
Hi. With the previous discussion where closing the age gap, there are kids, young kids who are not native English speakers coming into, let's say, the country, and they have the language barrier to overcome as well.
Well, the language barrier, that's one of the things we were talking about with the technology right now, looking at, let's say, age 1 to age 5. But you're correct in that if somebody moves from one country to another and they knew the school language in that country, but they don't know it in the country they're going into, AI is going to really enable whether you're looking at simultaneous translation at the glasses right now, you can be wearing the glasses, these Astra glasses from Google, and travel to another country, and you'll understand all the other conversations happening. If you sit in a restaurant, it will simultaneously translate everything it hears, so you can listen in on all the other people and the other tables, regardless of what language they're speaking. So this is one possibility that I think is going to be a path in schools, but also there are right now a lot of the language learning programs are leveraging AI. So you can take, if you look at advanced voice mode or the equivalent in any of these other subjects, and you can say, hey, I want to learn whatever language. So it will just talk to you in very simple terms, and it will rate where are you, how much do you know, and how much do you not know, and then it will just through conversation with you help you grow your vocabulary, but it also goes and perfects your pronunciation and says, oh, you're no, you have to pronounce that's a little bit of a longer O sound or whatever, because it hears you, and so it's constantly evaluating your pronunciation, it's evaluating the selection of words, your vocabulary, and it's helping you grow that. There's one language program out there that what they do is they have you watch the everyday TV shows, all the crime and the stories or the soap operas or what have you, in that language. But with where we're coming now, where you can be watching a video and saying, "Stop! What did that mean?" And the AI will explain to you what was going on in the scene there, and what the person said. So it's basically immersing you into the language to help you learn. And so that can reduce. I don't remember how long it was, but I know it was a very, very short time to be able to learn enough that to be able to get along in daily speech. And it's probably not that much longer to go to get better, especially if you can have a focus. One of the things when we looked at our fourth grade project to be able to demonstrate that we can take kids that are in schools and where the entire school never got to 10% of students to 70% of students, that we said, let's start with math. There were two reasons. One is most kids think math is the most difficult subject at that age. And the other, well, there's three. And the other is math has a finite vocabulary. It's not like if you're speaking a normal language, you got gazillion words that can all mean very similar or very nuanced things. Whereas in math, everything is finite and very defined. And it's a very small percentage of a overall language. So it's much easier to bring up people up to speed on that reduced vocabulary set. And the third is there's no ambiguity with math. There's only one right answer. Whereas if you're phrasing things in a language, there might be 10 ways to say that are pretty much all acceptable. And so it's more difficult to discuss what makes something right and what makes something better. Whereas with math, it's very clear. Okay, so We're almost 3 hours into our session again today. I'd like to hear how are we doing with this? Is this, we talked about technology and we've been talking about education. Um, how are we? Is this useful? Are these discussions good? And how can we make, what can we do? Oh, I am anticipating either next week or the week after. One of them is going to be about Calgary, but the other one is going to be about education, where I'm going to be asking people from the Basic Education and Literacy Rotary Action Group to present, and I'm going to be asking the leaders of a couple of schools. If you haven't heard about Alpha School, it's a school in Austin, Texas. They replaced all the human teachers with artificial intelligence. And this school, they were able to reduce the academic school day down to 2 hours only. So there's only 2 hours a day dedicated to cognitive academics. And they are in the top 4% of schools in the country now. And they were able to take the rest of their day after the 2 hours of cognitive education, the rest of the day and devote it to arts and sports and projects and things you're passionate about. So socialization, working with others, physical activity, or any of the arts. So they're very, very successful. They're expanding the number of campuses where they're located, and I think that's going to become a model for a lot of stuff. I don't know if I'll be able to get the founder to attend, but in one of our upcoming meetings, I definitely want to have the founder of that school discuss what was the thought process they went through to come up with the design for the school, and talk about some of the experiences they've had with how students and families reacted and so forth. But back to my original question, how are we doing on was today's session useful? I mean, you're still here, so I guess it couldn't be that bad, but how could we make it better? Come on, guys. Got to be some suggestions.
Maybe homework assignment to learn to practice what you guys have been teaching.
Yes, no, and that, yes, I agree 100%. And one of the things that we're looking at is taking, especially because these 3 hour sessions, to be honest with you, one of the reasons I've not been that up to date on publishing our recordings is because I have a hard time picturing people watching 3 hour recordings. But to be able to take out of those the segments that were the how-tos, or just simply curate and publish, because there are really great YouTube videos out there that will walk you through how to do stuff. And there's in aistudio.google.com, there's a thing called in the menu on the left side, the second one down is called streaming. And one of the choices in streaming is share my screen. And so if you take and something like Notebook LM or any subject there or any software, and you put it on your screen, and then you can have a discussion with it. So let's say it was PowerPoint that you're saying, hey, I got a PowerPoint presentation. I don't think it's as effective as it could be. Look at this third slide here. How could I make that more effective? And so it will start talking to you literally about how to make it more effective. And then you can say, well, I don't necessarily know how to do that in PowerPoint. How can I do that in PowerPoint? And it will walk you through. It says, okay, up at the top left, you see the second menu item on that. Try clicking on that in the drop down here, because, or it'll talk to you and say, oh, well, if you put a nice background image in, and then you have a discussion, what kind of background? Should it be a graph or a map, or what would be most useful? And then how to do it, to learn to use it. So I think that would be a very good tutorial to publish, because that way there it makes you independent to learn how to do anything that you can get onto your screen, that it'll literally walk you through how to use it to accomplish whatever you're trying to accomplish. But I do agree here that we should, as a minimum, try to provide a curated list. We need to get our website. We have a website, but it's for the club, but it hasn't really been maintained since COVID. And we need to bring that up to date. And we could have a section there that would have tutorials on how to use this, or some of the transcript of ours, or the video segments of where we've discussed certain things in these meetings. Anyone wanting to volunteer to help on that? Yes, Dietmar.
I think it was very interesting what we heard today, and lots of idea which could be spread with our Rotary clubs, with 46,000 Rotary clubs in the world. I think we could start locally, not with the whole world, just local. So I am attending weekly. It's called the Speaking Club. These are refugees from the Ukraine, and we meet once a week just to talk. They have basic knowledge in German, but they do not have the knowledge to talk with Germans in a group.
Mm-hmm.
And the level is quite different from this attendance. So you talked about the language learning program.
Yeah.
Maybe this could be tested by them. And then we could have the feedback right now in the weekly meetings, whether it works or not. What do you think about that?
Yes, actually here, I said earlier I'd come back to deep learning, but I really didn't get back to it. This would be a good example here to use Gemini or ChatGPT to say, make me a prompt to do a deep research on the status of tools to help people learn a new language very quickly. I don't know to what degree, but very often a lot of Ukrainians also speak English. They might not speak German, but maybe some of them speak English. I believe an English speaker can learn to understand and German TV or read a German newspaper in just a little more than 3 days. And I think I may have mentioned when we met, I'd put together at one point a dictionary of about 17,000 cognates, but they're sometimes indirect cognates because of the Lautverschiebung, because the consonant shift that took place. But the idea is to ask the AI, what are all my options? What can we do? And that might even be something to, well, one of the things I find is very useful is go to deep research. It will research sometimes 300-400 sources to do its deep research. And it's an iterative process. So it'll come up with a strategy and it will say, okay, I'm going to go out and I'm going to start off by looking for this. And it says, okay, I checked 25 sources for that. And this is what I found. And now because of what I found, I need to look deeper into this. I need to verify that and so forth. And then we'll do another round and it will go out and it will just try to find those pieces. And it just keeps this process going. I've had it go through up to 20 iterations of doing this until it finds no new information or no information to challenge. And then it will write its report. But it gives you the option when the report is done with one click to promote it to a Google Doc. It'll take it to a nice fancy document in Google Doc with one mouse click. It'll have the Google Doc. Then you go over to Notebook LM and literally say, here, source, I want to import a Google Doc. And then it will list, because that's one of the most recent ones you put up there. It's already there. You just click on it and say, import that. And now it'll import this result of these 400 sources that it did into Notebook LM. And then you can have it do a summary. You can have it do analysis. You can say, make a PowerPoint. You can say, make an audio overview on it. You You can make a mind map out of the result of the of all these 400 and plus sources on it, and you can also include then in, say, on the discovery, find for me all of the YouTube tutorials that show how to use AI in support of language learning, for adult language learning. It's a field that I'm very much interested in myself. I'm trying to learn Spanish, and I want to find a way to do it in a couple of days. So I've been looking at some of these tools, and I have found it's really great. And the thing with all the European languages, at least, they're all so similar. If you tell it, treat them as dialects of the same language, it will find a way to show you the relationships. When we think of a word like innovation, innovation, innovazioni, I don't know what the French is on it, but there are just so many words, and it will find all the similarities here and turn you into a detective. So every time you hear a word, you're always wondering, what's the relationship there, right? So who would think that between Toya and expensive, that there's a relationship, except the English say dear. They say dear for Toya. And it turns out that in German, it used to be, I guess, Deuer with a D that became a T later on in the Lautverschiebung. So it's really funny that you start to get to, every time you see words, these combination things to get into your head, and but you're able to guess what it probably is then. So anyway, that's how I would approach that particular project, to do that, to find a method, and then find a way. How do you create some tools that you can make available to all Ukrainians, refugees, trying to improve their German, and have it come up with a toolkit that you can now hand off to that, like Stuart was talking about, wanting to create for the global grants or for WASH projects, that you could create a notebook LM perhaps, or another one of the tools could be a ChatGPT project, where you're able to share it with anybody who's trying to deal with that project. And as a minimum, all other clubs could plug into that to set up a similar project in their club areas.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, Joan.
Yeah, you know how I work, Bill. I like to have a plan. So, is that the next progressive step, is to come up with a plan on, like when I say a plan, and you already know what you want to do, and you already know the purpose. So, what are the sort of steps to get there? What is the goal? By when?
Yeah.
How many?
Actually, I just need to share it, because a lot of these projects, like the project to close the gap in fourth grade, one of the problems that projects like this have encountered is it's very, very hard to get schools to agree to any kind of change, especially some outsider coming in saying, "Let me tell you how to do a better job at your job."
But if you have examples, you know how examples work. It's like getting funding. If you can get a school or
Well,
I
that's
always
why
find
that's the purpose of the 10 schools. But we
right,
actually have a plan of how to get the 10 schools here, and it involves getting the media involved
right.
and some sponsors, and then creating a competition among the 140 schools that are in that category to be able to participate. In other words, we're making it that's a big prize to be selected to participate in it. You have to compete. You have to show that you're going to be really dedicated, and so forth and so on. So we create a big noise. We make it a big media thing. So the media is saying here, oh, what are these schools offering for the right to participate in something that they would normally turn down and not get involved with in the first place. How do we get them to compete to be involved? And so we worked with AI, and actually we've got a number of papers. I've got like about 70, 80 pages of different aspects of how we get them involved, what happens to kick it off in the schools, how do you get like celebrities from the NBA, or basketball players or other people. How do you get them to help get the kids all fired up in their first rounds, and so that they're willing to work 15 hours a day, at least in the beginning here, of doing all the catch up, because they want to be heroes, and showing the plan how they can become heroes.
Right. So I think you have to formalize that so that the schools can then work it out. There was a program back in the 90s, I'm going to say. It could be the 2000s, it probably was the 90s, called I Want to Be a Millionaire. I don't know if you remember
Oh,
that.
I think I recall that, yeah.
Yeah, and that was the uptake was so good because of what and it was targeted at schools. And I was one of the coordinators for that program, and
Yeah,
been too
just
many
excuse me,
too
Joan.
many things.
Excuse me, Yvonne. Joan just told me here that the meetings for today's been canceled. You're
We can't hear
muted.
you, Yvonne.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're just wrapping up my other meeting here. So you're welcome to listen in, but it's not the Commons Cluster meeting.
Yeah, I have a message from Lisinka that says the meeting is canceled.
Oh, maybe she didn't know how many people would be here because there's like 9 people on the call.
Oh, yeah, no, but these are people from my previous meeting.
Oh, all right. Sorry. Okay.
That's
I'll
okay.
just
Yvonne,
listen.
what are you cooking?
Some kind of, I don't know, sweet potato and egg like bread things. So I didn't know my camera was on, and I just you have to be really careful, guys.
Yes.
Yeah.
Don't do anything wrong. Yeah. So anyway, that program, the coordinators would go and promote it to schools. Once there was an example of how successful, what the lessons learned, because that's what people want to know. They hesitate if, they're the first, how this whole, you do community outreach, and nobody wants to be the first, but you have a group of people and they all agree it's different. I've done a lot of advocacy work.
Actually,
I know this stuff.
We'll have to talk about that, because we're using
yeah.
a lot of that kind of psychology
Yeah.
in terms of getting the first rounds of schools engaged. And then the successes that the anticipation is the successes out of that.
Right.
We're very media conscious. So when we look, we're looking, how can we do things that are going to turn the schools that did participate, that their leaders and everybody really truly become heroes and celebrities. Because if we can do that, then the others are going to say, "Hey, I went in on that too."
Yeah.
Right.
So that's actually the plan. Is how do you do that? So I have to look up my notes from that. I probably threw it out, but anyway.
Yeah, no, we actually have quite a bit. This is the Close the Gap initiative, and within that, we've got a white paper on how it would work. We have a white paper on the strategy for engaging education advisors. This is another white paper on it. This is an overview. This is why it will be
What I found is
successful.
that lots of people have lots of resources, but you've got to put together for the person who are participating.
Yeah. Well, the thing about it was this whole thing, we're trying to put it back now because we had to stop during COVID because the schools were not in session. We couldn't get the school officials paying attention at that point because they were so preoccupied with dealing with COVID issues. But now we think that's behind us. So now we're reaching out we're looking at several states that where we've got some Rotary clubs that are interested, or some members of our club in different states, that are interested in getting it off the ground in their jurisdiction where they live. So so hey, anyone, Dietmar, if you've got schools that are having particular difficulties, and I know there are, for example, in Munich, we know there's 10,000 kids in Munich that are coming to school every day that don't even have breakfast. And it's something you would not expect in Germany. But Uschi Glas, for example, has a Stiftung, Brotzeit, Bread in Time, that you might want to look up, but that describe how bad it is. But if we could find, if you find some schools in Germany, I want to parallel what we're looking at here, that might be something that could create. You've got a lot of media attention anyway. I saw it said F report a couple of years back talking about some Doctors Without Borders saying they couldn't do what they were doing if it wasn't for Rotary. And that kind of publicity really makes the story. And I think if you had a project and to close the education gap among some of the worst performing primary schools in Germany, that's the kind of thing that's going to get media attention in Germany. And then that's an opportunity for Rotary to really boost its image. Okay. So I think here we sort of have stretched this 3.25 hours. Whoa, not a record, but it's not a kind of a record that I think we strive to break. So I think if there's nothing further, we'll call this meeting to an end. And as I say, I'll be working to put together in the next couple of meetings. I want to have one meeting that is going to summarize some of the highlights from Calgary, and especially to get some of the organizations that organized either side events or symposiums there to present, and maybe even somebody from Evanston on the strategy side to say a little bit about where we're going. And the other one that we will try to do is I'm going to try to get some of these representatives that are actually working on some of the education, the alternate approaches to education, because we know the current education system will not meet the goals that were set out at the World Summit for Education Transformation that was held at the UN 2.5 years ago, or started. And so we'll try to get some of them. We want to try to put together a committee working with Belrag to actually address the education situations. Now, we might come out and say, why bother? Why bother? If there's not going to be any jobs, why bother with education? Well, because guess what? If we're going to have a society, we still have to figure out how we're going to work together. We want people to be able to vote. We want people to be informed voters and to be able to guide how our society is going to go. And we want people, if we take away their jobs, so many people define themselves by their jobs, by their profession. We're going to need to figure out what gives meaning to life in a post-labor economy or post-labor world. And if you're not educated, you won't have the choice to figure out where we need to go, where you need to go, and what's going to make you feel fulfilled. And so and we don't have a lot of time, because if the society breaks down before some of those things are put in motion, it's going to be very hard. Everybody's going to be so focused on survival at that point, and we're going to have issues between the 3% that own all the AI and robots and the rest of us, that nobody's going to have the bandwidth to worry about things like education at that point. And so we've got to get things in motion in the right path. And in parallel, we're working. That was the thing Joan and Yvonne and I and many others are looking at what are we going to do if this post-labor economy comes. And so that's a separate thing that we're working on separately on that. Anyway, I thank you all. You are what's the term? You're the
Yeah.
hardcore to have
completer finishers.
yes. We're definitely going to look into how we can make some of the things we've talked about here be more practical. I can't promise these changes that we've heard with ChatGPT 5 and Grok 4 and the interactive avatars, which not only HeyGen, and they're just one company working on it, but we know there's multiple companies that are really working on gangbusters on that. But just imagine how different society will be with that. Or think about the humanoid robots that was just announced last week. One of the major they upgraded the brain in the humanoid robot, and it's now no longer connected to the cloud. It's all self-contained. The rumor is that within 15 years, there might be as many humanoid robots walking the streets as there are humans, except that the humanoid robots will probably be smarter. So we have to just imagine those kind of scenarios. Okay, so hopefully you all try out and do crazy stuff with Notebook LM and with the jot forms and do deep research. Try out the deep research in Gemini. I think it's the best one. And don't ask what is, how do I, ask why, what if. Ask those kind of questions. Those carry on. I have very few conversations with AI that does not go at least 10 to 15 exchanges because it'll bring something up and then I'm asking why and how come you said that and why didn't you look at this or doesn't this play a role too? That's where it really starts to get interesting. Because I'm not trying to make an essay for something handed for some school report. I'm trying to understand stuff. So anyway, thank you all. Have a great weekend, and
And
hope to
we'll
see you
catch
next.
up. We'll catch up later.
Yes. Okay. Bye now.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye bye. Bye bye.